Well, hello again. Do I move from this room, from this pod? Welcome again to a lively, fiery and fun night with the Sensesphere channel. We do aim to give you passion, quality content and a range of views. I underline that. This channel encourages debate and asking the pertinent question. No echo chambers here, no nonsense here either though. So welcome to the Sensesphere, talking sense, making sense of it all. And we've seen all the headlines today, the ratings and that. We're all over it like a rash. On tonight's show, we will have the scores from all 5 panelists in our Tombstone totalizer. Last year, it was the scores on the Sarcophagus. And that you want to say that fast. So there's the scores last year, you'll see. Legend of Ruby Sunday did win, but those are miserable figures from our panelists last year. Devil's Cord got the relegation zone there. So basically, that's what we're up against. But tonight, it's the, we've livened it up. It's the Tombstone totalizer. That's what we're doing this year. The Tombstone totalizer. So you will get the figures, and I've broken down the figures into the 3 categories. There's going to be some great fun tonight. You'll be very charged up about it. Now, last night, with our debut Who night, we played some broke hack bingo. See what I did there? And I just thought, for those who did miss the show last night, and where were you? Maybe you're in bed. This is my sci-fi scorecard for Broke Hack Bingo, and I thought I'd share it with you just to warm you up for tonight's debate and discussions, because I have to say, I've had all the results in, I've had their burning issues in, I've got the ratings in, and it's going to be a hell of a debate tonight. We've really got a lot to say. Now, in red, I filled in where I think the robot revolution actually did deliver. Now, deliver doesn't mean good thing. It just means I could cross it off. For example, there was a soap opera moment, you know, will you marry me? Blah, blah, blah. The doctor cried. It was a very juicy, lush tear, wasn't it? My God, it was a rich tear, that. Companion has agency, the bad man trope. Timey-wimey was even mentioned. And by the way, I made this card before the episode. I was just trying to think of last season. I listed that we did have a son on dance moment because Rachel was helping me last night. He did high kicks and everything, and he was a bit OTT. The costume change, we had a couple. The doctor was indecisive again. Virtues were signalled and all the rest of it. So next week, I might even release this scorecard so everybody can join in when they watch Lux, and we can actually discuss it together. But yeah, you can see there what it's a good bit of fun, isn't it? The gender fluidity. Well, it was Simon, our contrarian, who actually helped me there. He said that when you actually see the X-ray of the doctor, it does say name unknown, but go down and it's in small writing. I've actually got it on one of our slides. It does actually say sex status unknown. Yeah, I know. So yes, great fun this, but you can see there, we didn't get a full card. And, you know, with this era of Doctor Who with RTD, you sometimes wonder. So that was our Broke Hack Bingo that we had great fun with. And, of course, we had the introduction of Miss Belinda Chandra. Don't ever say Miss. I'm going to call her Belinda Tundra. Little Miss Icy, I tell you. Because if you see this cartoon that was released... Oh, don't give us cartoons of these two. I thought, God, can you imagine her as one of the little misses? You know, I had the Mr. Men with Roger Hargreaves. Little Miss Frosty, Little Miss Icy, Little Miss Tuffet. No, Little Miss Edgy, Little Miss Tense. Oh, God, why do we always have to have people with that? Little Miss Attitude, that's what I'll call her. Now, that artwork did not please me. But this artwork, no, sorry, I'm triggering you. Is this the 2 time zones thing? Is this the kind of, you know, oh, dear me. What about this? Do you see this artwork? They released this yesterday, and this was the artist's impressions of how they were going to kind of, you know, set up the designs and sets and everything. And, you know, you just see the potential all the time of what they could do. I'll be interested what you all think of that owl generator. I wasn't quite... Sometimes I wonder, am I watching a kind of cartoon version of Doctor Who? Sometimes I keep thinking, am I being too judgmental? But, you know, there you go. There's Al Generator. There's a kind of a mock-up of how they were going to do the action sequences with the robots. Again, delicious stuff. And there's the kind of bunker as they were kind of delivering it. I suppose, yeah, it's like just wartime, really, isn't it? But this sort of picture always grabs my eye. But I'll be interested what the thread thinks, and I'll be interested what the panelists think of this retro style, the retro style of the robots, the retro style of the rocket. That to me just looks like Destination Moon Tintin. So, yeah, you know what? I mean, look at this. The love for Doctor Who behind the scenes, the passion, the talent. These people I feel for. They're at the top of their game. They're delivering great stuff, you know, really. It's just that the stories don't support them. And, you know, when you've put all that love and passion into it and you've pushed your talent to the limit, and then you see it gets certain ratings. Yes, we'll discuss. It gets certain negative feedback. You just think, I know, just give them a good story. You know, that's what it needs. That's what it needs. So, why am I showing you pecs from Paradise Towers? Well, I think you know why, don't you? You know, our mock-up of Rambo in Paradise Towers. Remember that when the Kangs and everybody took the mick out of him, and, you know, it was a bit of an abuse of him. And I feel as though we went down that road again, didn't we? And we will be discussing this. You want to see the burning issues we've got set up in a moment just to argue the toss over. And of course, what do they say about politicians and people who like to gaslight? You know, what do they say? Throw a dead cat. Throw a dead cat on the table and distract us. And we had a dead cat early doors, didn't we? We certainly did. There's a dead cat that, you know, distracts you from seeing any of the gaps or anything in the plot. And may I say, I loved all the deaths. I have to say, that's one thing I will say I enjoyed, is a high death count. Me and Eric Saywood are like that. Yeah, I agree. So, yes, we had all these items. And if I just remind you, one other thing that we do tonight is at about 8:30, we will have our big debate as well. The red lines in Doctor Who seeing red. Have they crossed the red lines? When would you walk away from Doctor Who? Big debates. That'll be very, very tasty. So I think we're at that point when I actually have to say to you all, shall I get the panel on? Now, some people have said, Brendan, you need to make a big thing of this. You know, in your first season, you had them dancing in the aisles. You had them really bigging it up. And I thought, yeah, I need to demand more of my panelists. I have to say that is very true. Very, very true. So, I'm very demanding this year. Mark criteria, burning issues, and they need to be on their A game. So here we go. Shall I introduce them all, And they've got a dance. Yeah. I think you know the score. The Hoopettes will be dancing at some point too as well. So here we go. Shall we introduce them? Shall we get them on? I need to get them in the right positions. So let me just... Now, do you remember that, everybody? Do you remember that? That's how we're going to play it. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to get them all fired up, all ready. So let me just get the positions there. Right. So here we go. He's ready. I can see him in the aisles. He's ready. So if I can get the first one on, you can see who it is. Milking it. Yeah, he's checking. And who's next? There we go. Good seeing Michelle as well. You got your inhaler. And we've got Rachel as well. I'm not going to shout tonight. And who else have we got? Oh, we've got Paul. There he is. Yes, he's going to warm up on this one.
once more.
Yes, I won't scare you to death with any more, right? That's not what we do.
Right, that's it. I'm finished. Bye.
So there you go.
That's my cardio for the day.
I've got you all charged up now. You see, we get our money's worth out of these panelists, don't we? Yes, it does sound like Dynasty backpots. I love doing that to them. So we've got them going. I'm not going to beat about the bush. We're here to debate and review full forensic tonight, but with fun attached. So you know our first item, everybody who watches our reviews, and I think this is going to take a while. It's our burning issues. Yes, the dead cat might be the least of it, I think. I think they're all knackered now. Next week, bring your own inhaler. So, check your clack. So, John, your burning issue. I know you've been dying to tell us all about it. Everybody's been dying to hear what John's going to say about it. So, over to you, John.
Which one in particular? There were several. Which one were you?
You go for it. You go for it. Don't worry.
Well, okay. It's an old favourite. Doctor's costume. I am fed up Doctor Who being used as a catwalk for this man, because essentially that's just what it is. He gets to walk on, mince on, stroll on, whatever it is Shutigawa does, and he does it wearing what I presume to be high fashion. Certainly not the sort of stuff you see in the high street. And to that extent, he gets the Doctor right, I suppose, but without eccentricity. So this man just walks on. I think last night we saw him in 2 outfits, one of which with him without jacket, and one of which was a gender fluid skirt. I just want to know, in whose head was it decided that this is a good look for the Doctor? Because essentially, what I'm thinking is this is a good look for Shutigawa, for him to, if you like, have a bit of a sideline. If the acting career doesn't work out, maybe I just do modelling instead. And let's face it, he'll probably be better at that than he is at the Doctor. But I just don't want our programme, 63 years in the making, to be used as a platform to someone to have this secondary career. Give the man a costume. Let him be the Doctor, let him look eccentric, and let's enjoy it more.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add to that one? Either agree or disagree? Anthony Parkinson's agreeing with you, John.
Yeah, I agree with that. We need a silhouette for him. They keep going back to the brown coat, right? Okay, because they have to. Because they need something that was recognizable, but he's not recognizable as a Doctor. He has no distinct costume. He wanted his own costume. He had an idea for it, didn't he? But they said no.
Yeah.
But it's more than that, Brendan. I'm sorry to cut across. But it's more than that. It's not just a lack of costume. As I said, it's the fact that this man is using this program as a catwalk. He's dressing in what I presume to be high fashion. How would I know what high fashion is? But I'm presuming that's what it is. If he was just a Doctor in a plain suit, in a jumper and jeans, a t-shirt, shorts, whatever, we can all complain about that. He doesn't have an identifiable silhouette. But it's more than that. This man is parading up and down through episode after episode in what purports, I suppose, to be his fashionable clothes. And last night, it hit a new low, because what we all assumed was a pinstripe kilt was in fact just a dress or a skirt. It's just not the Doctor.
And the other thing is, I mean, Michelle, I was going to say to you, because they want Doctor Who to go global. Now, there's a lot of cultures out there who don't know in the British Isles that maybe considered a kilt. But you've just heard from a Scot say, not really.
Well, we wouldn't even consider that a skill here in the United States.
We're kilt.
And we're the inventors of the micro kilt, by the way. I've seen more men trying to wear a kilt in the United States and their knobby knees. No, that is not a look. That's a look no one wants to see, Americans.
Yeah.
So it's
point, Brendan, that was not a kilt. Speaking as a Scotsman, kilts are not worn beneath the knee.
Yeah.
And this is the point. When you're going global, there'll be certain cultures going, why is that man wearing a dress? I don't know if this is a program for me, because they won't understand it. Paul, what were your thoughts on this one? Agree or disagree, just regarding John's burning issue there?
I definitely agree. I mean, he's diffuse enough as it is, and this just leans into that more by making us more expectant, not for the right reasons, but more expectant as to what he might be wearing 1 week from the next. And it detracts and distracts from any sort of concentration on the nature of the show itself. So I'm in full agreement with John on that, and it certainly isn't the Doctor. And also the disabling that they employ to try and convince us that it's a kill. So it becomes a distinction without a difference, and it insults us further, insults our intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because when you see him in interviews, he doesn't even dress conservatively either. So I mean, I can't spot the difference between Shooty in real life and Shooty in the program, and that's one of the things. So Rachel,
yes, that's why I disagree with.
Yeah,
you had a Rachel. You said you had a question. Brendan says this is as he does in real life as the Doctor.
John, there's something with your sound at the moment, so just hold on a minute. Even if you have to leave and come back, it might be something like that. I don't know. Rachel, burning issue for you.
Yeah, okay, well, I gave you two, didn't I? So I'll just do both of them because I don't know which one is worse. So our wonderful Alan, yes, our Alan, the robot, yeah, the one that was augmented into the machine. I have a burning issue with him because he goes in there fully able-bodied, and then they augment him into the machine, however it was that they did that, and suddenly he's got no legs. That's a bit rich, isn't it? Seeing as Davros was deemed problematic by Russell T Davies. So I find that a little bit rich. Now, a lot of people are saying to me, oh, no, it's not that, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it is, because if you listen to what RTD has said, he has told you it is problematic. So therefore, I would imagine that this with Al is also problematic. And so therefore, to me, this is problematic. And then the other one is the Doctor and Belinda laughing at the fact that Al is dead. I don't like that. You can argue that he is an alien. However, I've never seen him react like that before. I don't know if it was directed. I don't know if it was in script. I don't know if it was an acting choice. However, it was in very poor taste.
It was actually pretty shocking, I thought.
Yeah.
We have seen him. You mentioned Davros. We've seen the Doctor see a younger Davros and actually think, well, we've got a chance to rehabilitate him, get him as a youth. And I was shocked. We've seen how he has felt sympathy for Margaret Slevine. We've seen how he's had sympathy for villains over the time. I've never seen anything as blatant as you saw. I mean, I'll just get the dialogue up. Polish. Apparently, this toxic man, and by God, is that a burning issue in a moment thread? Is this called reductive? He's turned into a sperm and an egg. Yeah, that's it. And the Doctor just goes, oh, well, there you go. And then, how unfortunately cleaned up. So in other words, he will never exist. In other words, he's been wiped from history, this toxic man, because he tuts. And then the Doctor laughs. Goodbye, Alan. Unbelievable. No sympathy for a man who no longer will exist and is wiped from history. I mean, John, this is not the Doctor.
No, can you hear me now? I'm still getting a bit of feedback. Can you hear me?
Yep.
That's good. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I agree with both of you. It's there is absolutely, this is not the Doctor, but you remember the Doctor as played by Shooty Gatwa can only speak the words put into his mouth by Russell T Davies, the showrunner, and these are his words written by him, and that's what he's saying. So the man who 20 years ago sort of wrote Mickey, if you like, Rose's girlfriend, who could well be described as toxic as well, and was allowed redemption, if you like, has now written a new character who not only gets cancelled, like it's erased from history. And I think that says a huge amount about where he is politically and where he is as a person these days. He just doesn't want to cancel these people, not hear points of view. He wants to erase you. And that's very much a sign of the progressive left as it exists today. We just erase your risk. It's almost year zero stuff.
Yeah.
That's very, very worrying.
I mean, I am Michelle. I'm absolutely appalled at this. This is when debate, and we want to debate on this channel, and we will disagree tonight because I've seen the grades, I've seen people's scores. But the point is, there's got to be a respect. You do not cancel. There's cancel, and then there's erase. And this is off. I really do think that's beyond the pale for Doctor Who, this, because it's pretty cruel to say, okay, somebody was a bad un, somebody did naughty things, somebody was a little. I mean, he wasn't a criminal, by the way.
No, he was just an immature jerk. And I've had a bad boyfriend that was like not as bad as Alan, but would belittle me and call me a silly goose, and didn't acknowledge my achievements, and that's why I'm not with him anymore. But to say that nobody is beyond redemption, that because he had ideas that you disagree with, he is reverted back to a sperm and an egg and then is aborted.
Basically aborted.
Effectively, yes, yep.
Yeah.
And also, how many people did the doctor kill when he shorted out the hospital?
Yep, yeah.
But
don't worry, that's covered with an oops.
I mean, it's so hard to, when you ask for gradings of these episodes, it's like, well, what is the rubric? Do we look at past doctors, or how is it, or is it how bad within the shooty, the episodes? It's like when you're trying to grade something, and it's so difficult with this era. And last season I tried to be so positive. It's like, let's see this to the end. Let's see this to the end. And then their end was like, WTF.
Yeah, I nearly had a video. John knows I was close to doing a little video of last year, but you both know that we all scored differently. It's fascinating. Paul, is there anything you want to say on this burning issue? Because I have to say, there were two things that got me aggrieved, and one was that, and I just think they are completely ripping up the Doctor's concern, his morals, which are much higher than ours. I just think this is way beyond, and it's for kids who are watching. I think this is cruel.
Paul, we can't hear you, honey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. You're okay. You keep going.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh.
You're coming through.
Sorry about that. I don't know what could have happened. I did see some new messages to the effect that there was a sound coming through. I didn't know if it was mine or not. But back to the Doctor thing. I think his signature is reverence for life, and it's also tolerance, even in the face of the egregious things that some of his adversaries do. I mean, for instance, he was quite willing to take the Master on a kind of extended holiday around the universe with him in was it the End of Time?
Yeah.
Or, I think it was the End of Time, wasn't it? The Sound of Drums, one of those. So there is lots of precedent for the Doctor being of that nature. So once again, for Davies to overwrite something like this so callously, it shows that he's not sort of capable of empathy with the fans or with the characters.
Well, that they all have a flag. Be kind. They all, be kind, be tolerant, be inclusive. And this is so inclusive to say, I don't like their argument, I don't like their manners, I don't like their characterization, I want them erased.
Yeah. What was this boy, and he was a boy initially, what was he guilty of? He was guilty of being a clumsy dork.
I've got all the evidence. It was really, it was terrible stuff, John.
Yeah,
really
so what he was guilty of being a clumsy dork who patronized his girlfriend Belinda. But you know what? It takes two to create a bad relationship at times, and she allowed him to do that. So I just dumped the guy, as Michelle says, dump the guy and find somebody more worthy of you. But as a result of this, and she says she's not seen him in however many years. So obviously that's what she
16
did.
years. 16 years. She says she
16 years. So within a year of that issue at the beginning, she dumps him, and then according to Russell Davies, he's worthy of never having existed and his sperm and egg being aborted. This is crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, and
The second line, by the way, guys, was he's telling her how far the star is. He goes, but that's really far because girls aren't good at maths.
Now, can I just show his? Remember, he loves to do 45-minute episodes. He's the master of this. He doesn't want to spend 4 episodes developing character and doing nuance. So this is his way of doing it. So his definition of a toxic male is this: no more texting after 8 o'clock. I really don't think you should wear clothes that tight anymore. And then she later says, and he tutted and huffed and rolled his eyes and told her off and was always correcting her. Now, we can debate masculinity and femininity, but the point is, this is RTD's definition of toxic male. That's it, isn't it?
Have him and the others like him removed immediately. Shovel them up and get them out, because this is eugenics almost, the way it was built into this plot. Absolutely shockingly bad. And do you know what's particularly bad about this? Because at the moment, and I've not seen this program, but there is a program doing the rounds on Netflix called Adolescence, which is all about toxic masculinity now, using the internet to affect young boys and turn them into not nice human beings. And at the same time, Russell Davis's idea of this is, tut, huff, roll your eyes, and by the way, you're not good at math. He must be hanging his head in shame about the idiocy and the infantile way he wrote this episode.
But not only is it not inclusive and intolerant, it's also highly exaggerated and inflammatory. I mean, so somebody you deem as toxic has to be erased and cancelled and, obliterated. And then, of course,
Be kind while you do it, but be kind while you do it. Be kind.
Yeah, well, and then, of course, the other issue is, aren't these just microaggressions, some of these things? Tutting and huffing and rolling your eyes. But you see, microaggressions appeared a few years ago, and suddenly you're not allowed to breathe, it seems to me. So, yes, somebody could be rude to their girlfriend and always critical and suffocating, and I know that. But the rolling your eyes and tutting and huffing, I mean, honestly, I sometimes, exhaling loudly a breath. Come on, are we allowed to breathe and live? So, yes, toxic masculinity does come up in this agenda, and I know there's a certain toxic male I know. Do you want me to introduce him? Here he is.
God.
Oh, God, I know.
No.
This is Nobby.
No.
This is Nobby the Nobot. He used to be a toxic male, didn't you?
I did.
Did I have that part removed?
My ex-girlfriend, she asked me how I looked, how she looked in a dress. I told her.
Oh, I bet you did.
Now, does your ex-girlfriend now have your toxic male parts in a bag?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the cutlery.
I've got no bits left.
So
I opened the door for... Sorry, John?
Now you're no Nobby, no bot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they called me that at school, that sometimes the kids, when they wanted to be rude, because my surname's Noble, and they used to shout no ball. I said, hey. And I said, if you're saying I'm no ball, it does mean I've got one left, so shut your face and get on with your work. Right, sorry about that. Bit of a sideline there.
All I did was open a door for her. I advised her how to do the dishes, line them up properly in the dishwasher.
Oh.
What's wrong with that?
We all have people like, yeah.
She told me that I suffocated her. And now I've been put on this detoxifying program and turned into a robot.
And how is it working? Look at him. I mean, he is like Al, isn't he? He's like Al Generator. Look at him. Are you all right then? Oh, but he's still got legs though, Rachel, look.
Oh, good. He's not legless then.
No. So he's got some goodness in him.
Oh, good.
Or does that mean because he's got legs, he can be evil?
Have you just...
Oh yeah. You could be evil. You could
Yes.
be evil. I've just
You could
seen
be
in the chat. Anthony Parkinson says the Hoopettes have more range than Gatwa.
Yeah, don't tell Jamie he's got range, honestly. He's got
What
two
are you talking
tones.
about? Jamie's not there.
Yeah, where's Jamie? I think he's out somewhere.
It's me, not me. What are you talking about?
So basically, I'd love to know where this, who is this woman who got rid of you then and chucked you and dumped you? I'm proud of her. Where is she?
I think she's coming around somewhere. Hang on.
Right. Well. I'm dying to see who this woman is, aren't you? She's girl power. She knows what she's doing.
Oh, it's
You're
Melissa.
toxic!
Slay queen.
Oh, look at it.
Slay,
It's Belinda.
girl.
It's Belinda Tundra.
Did you just write this
Christy Nichols.
today, Brendan?
You're a silly goose!
I don't know. She's more like Tiny Temper. So what?
Look, don't address me as Miss.
Oh, God, I know this one. I mean, can I address you as Miss Michelle and Rachel? How does this work
Yeah,
nowadays?
you can call me Miss. I prefer the MISS over the MS. But I have filled
Yeah,
out
same.
paperwork where I will refer to myself as MISS. It is a sign of respect.
But not Miss Belinda
I don't
Tundra.
like the MS. I don't like the MS because I just don't like it.
Don't roll your eyes at me.
Oh, your balls.
I tell you what, if she doesn't want to be a miss, she's a mistake. You go away, mistake. I tell you what. Here we go. So, burning issues. Next one, Paul. What burning issue did you have?
Firstly, it was the toxic male narrative. I felt it was necessary. I have to say, in the interest of full disclosure, I feel that there's much to recommend this episode. I felt it was a decent story and I felt it was well told. But the thing which always frustrates me is the fact that he feels the need to infiltrate things with this messaging. And not only is it messaging, but it's skewed and entirely biased messaging. I don't think there's any place for it in Doctor Who. You could have explored a character who was perhaps a little abusive, perhaps verbally abusive, and he could have shown how such a character became embittered and jealous and resentful of being rejected and ended up as being a monster. There's plenty of form for that in Doctor Who, and it's largely been done well. But I feel that this was just to make a point to essentially attack 50% of the population, and it was done gratuitously. The most egregious example I found wasn't in the case of Alan. It was the case of that gentleman in the hospital when Belinda just sort of dismissed him as perhaps being attacked by his wife. To me, the guy appeared randomly. She said that to him. And to my mind, the point that Davies was trying to make was that any random male can have the potential to be toxic. And I found that the most egregious thing, as I said.
I tell you what, well, he's the example of the dialogue. I mean, I had to, sometimes you have to replay stuff back, and I thought, so who bit you? Okay, I mean, she's a busy nurse and he's in pain. Was it a dog? Was it a man? Under her breath, was it your wife? I mean, okay, sarky woman here. I mean, she's telling me I can't huff and puff and tut, but by God, she's allowed to use sarcasm. I'm confused by what's toxic and what's not in this culture nowadays.
And also, Brendan, on that same line, we're unaware of why she's made that judgment about this man because she's just met him. But imagine turning that around and having a female lying there with her arm in a sling, and her saying to him, "Or was it your wife? Yeah, was it your husband?" Imagine it's a female lying there saying, "Or was it your husband?" In other words, justifying perhaps some. Giving the husband a reason why he's picked or been violent towards his wife. It's just not on. But in this land that these people inhabit, everything we do is good.
Yeah.
Everything you do isn't. We can get away with this, but you can't. I just find the standards to be double throughout.
That's what I mean. I mean, so yeah, I mean, the toxic masculinity, it is one of those, and we've kind of doubled down on it in various things. And the messaging, there's a lot of messaging. I mean, one thing I went to town on last night myself, and I know you saw a bit of it, Michelle, was the message about veterans, this elite viewpoint about war and rebellion. I struggle with it because RTD's that, he's shown the Doctor using words, yabbering away, hiding behind while everyone else is getting shot at and murdered, and hiding with Belinda. And she's also one of those who just talks a lot. Like later on, she said, "I'm going to talk about stopping war." I mean, She didn't have any master plan. Classic virtue signaler. They have no plan. They just say their virtue again and again and hope it goes away. Meanwhile, there's people with brawn, people with bravery, people behind them risking their life, getting maimed, getting killed. But they're not given a story. They're not given an award. They're not given even more than 10 lines. And this is classic RTD. We don't look at our working class veterans. We don't care about them. The story of the rebellion was a historian yabbering on with a mock queen. And both of them have had a chit-chat and thought that words could solve the world. A load of baloney. Michelle, I thought the whole message was garbled. And I think it had unfortunate messages about veterans and everything.
Yeah, because I missed that part of your spiel last night. So I'm listening to you what you had to say, and I think you actually have a very good argument here about, again, and we have the same problem in the United States. We'll send them to war, we'll slap some medals on you, and then they come home and they start talking to a street pole, and then we laugh about it, and instead of giving them the desperately help that they need. So I think, yeah, again, it's just like, you know, they used to say about the American Civil War that, you know, it was a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. And I think that you can make that argument about every single war. And I think you made a very good point about what it says about how we treat our veterans.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I mean, John, you know, Max Parker playing here Manny. I don't know if Manny has a double-edged sword name here or something, but basically he's Manny in the manosphere, and you know, he's got the brawn, and there's a load of others and women fighting.
And is he toxic masculinity? He's being a man, he's fighting a war. Is that toxic? But what part of masculinity is toxic? He
didn't have many lines, but a few of the interactions that were in the script was Belinda telling him off, John.
Yeah.
So I just think the message is garbled.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, but for his intervention, Belinda wouldn't be able to do the sacrificing act that she makes with the little beedly robot later on. Ultimately, you know, wars are not won by words. Wars are unfortunately won by weapons and brawn and strength and all those sorts of things. That's just the real world, whether we like it or not. And it's so easy for the keyboard warriors like Russell Davies putting words into the mouths of these people. They've never had to fight. They've never had to fight for the country, fight for the same principles that he allows him to write and then slag off. You see, veterans or people who do the brunt of it. And I'm talking about veterans who are both male and female. This isn't just a man thing. And yeah, so it just seemed to be that he had this notion that his heroine, Belinda, would get the better of this man, but without this man and everybody else fighting alongside him, Belinda would be lying in a pool of her own blood.
Yeah. There's some interesting comments coming through at the moment. Sadako24 disagrees with me about Belinda because she was willing to self-sacrifice by actually betraying all the people who saved her, by the way. I mean, if you're going to self-sacrifice in a wartime, you might be running into the lines and you try and gain a few meters. That's the bravery and sometimes the futility of war. Belinda didn't do that. She just switched on that polish again, and as you know, betrayed everybody. They could have all been wiped out. She had no guarantees, no insurances. So I'm not awarding her Miss Tiny Temper.
Is Paul trying to get in?
You hear me?
Yes, Paul, go on.
I didn't see it as a betrayal. I liked what she did. I felt that it was commensurate with what went before in the plot. I think there was a plot point laid down that implied that the other robots could trace, polishing robots, as it were. And I felt that was a good use of continuation in the plot. I also felt that it was a brave act because the likelihood was that they would be found eventually by the robots, and she wanted to short circuit that by offering herself as a sacrifice, being married to the AI presumably to free them. So I thought that was a good gesture.
Paul, I absolutely understand why you have that point of view, but the point I'm trying to make is that but for the same people that she's rolling her eyes at and isn't very comfortable with, she wouldn't have been alive to have performed that act.
Oh, yeah, that certainly.
Point. So it's not a question of one better than the other. It's the fact that it took one thing to happen in order for the second thing to happen.
True.
Yeah, and we had all these tiny scenes. with RTD's 45-minute structure, you just get little moments. So this moment says so much. You had Manny slowing himself up to help an injured rebel. Meanwhile, the doctor, Talkie Doctor, and Talkie Belinda just ran off themselves.
Yeah.
And then there was the moment when the doctor actually told Manny to hurry up. And this, he's supposed to be my hero. The man who says, hurry up, get in here now. Sorry, I was just trying to save a man's life. Isn't that your job, Doctor? Honestly, but that's not toxic at all. The doctor telling somebody to hurry off the battlefield, that's not toxic at all. RTD, you do not understand the minefield you're in. You just don't.
Because a real soldier and a real will never leave a wounded brother or sister on the battlefield.
Yeah.
You go through a recent history. Read the awards for bravery, the Congressional Medal of Honor. Read some of the commendations. It's all for going and risking their life to protect, either jumping on a bomb to keep it from blowing up on their companions, or for rescuing an injured soldier.
So you know, that was my burning issue. Mr. Squinty Mint here, one problem I had with the coercive control stuff was RTD bragging about calling all the shots on the show and people having to be brave to disagree with him. Mm-hmm. Toxic. Yeah, good point. Jess, this had no depth to it. Emotive content was almost non-existent. Oh, Jess, didn't you get bothered by his tear for Sasha 55? Major emotional moment, I thought. Well, it was meant to be.
Well, the audience didn't seem to think so. Ooh.
No, a lot of people said no.
The minute she said, when this is done, we're going to see the stars, like, oh, she's dead. She's dead. Yeah.
Paul Holgate, one-sided sexism is everything. Gender-swapping Marvel characters, Snow White, Luke Skywalker, or Darth Vader are no longer the most important characters in Star Wars. Well, they're killing the brand, aren't they? That's the thing. And we've got here my main issue with the episode, aside from the writing, the unrealistic character responses, the unnatural dialogue, was so much happened, and at the same time, nothing happened. Oh, so you'll be interested in our Tombstone totalizer. Oh, the grades are fascinating. We have a diversity of opinion here. You watch. Sadako, Doctor Who had an uncomfortable relationship with the military, but it got all the uglier from Warriors of the Deep on, where the fan writers increasingly defined the Doctor as just hating soldiers. Okay. So I suppose let's have a look on burning issues. I've had the Doctor's costume from John, but you also, and you've been saying this a while, John, but I don't think you find it's going away, is you keep saying, where is the Disney money?
Yeah, absolutely. I never thought I would say these words, but I'm about to say them. I long for the Jodie Whittaker era.
Oh my God, I'm soundbite.
But I'll qualify that now by saying it looked better. It looked better. Yeah, no, I need my notes. It looked cinematically. It looked better. This program, the one last night, looked as though a lot of it had been done in front of a green screen. Quite obviously so. It had a cartoon-like quality to it. And that's maybe the intention. Perhaps that is. I don't get it. I know there was a 1950s vibe to the sci-fi stuff. You keep putting him in his arms up. Wonder why. I understand why they might have gone for that 50s vibe, got all that. But the whole look of the thing, on that little bridge area where they take out the TARDIS on and off, it just looked like what it is. It looked like something from the old show. That they plant them there and they take the camera back and they do the chroma key or CSO, call it what you will. I just am not seeing the money. Now here it was, season opener. Here would have been a great way of getting in a huge, big guest name to pull some people in back to the program after who maybe just gave up on it. I didn't know any of the people.
And by guest name, John. And by guest name, I take it you don't mean TV presenters. You mean actual actors, yeah?
Yeah, actors. Proper. I'm talking about, and even in this episode, you could have gone for just a big name that might have put a few more bottoms on seats to play a particularly good role. I mean, the whole the Yeah, him. Yeah. I think he was well cast.
Yes, it was a
A
very
few
good
things
choice.
but the whole
Otherwise
the
known as
Alan
something for
character,
the moms.
the Alan character at the start could have been played by a more famous name. And I think when it came to the bit at the end where he's doing his villain bit, it could have been better played because all I got through that was the accent he said a bit
Yeah.
northern to me, and it lost something in that.
Shocking.
So that's what I could have got. Shockingly bad. Yeah, get rid of that. But where is this Disney money? Whether it's in the casting, whether it's in the graphics, whether it's in the special effects, I don't know. I'm just not seeing it. And I think Doctor Who looked better, God help us, during the Chris Chibnall era. What is that? What was that thing? Did that have AA batteries inside it running end to end? Because that's about 14. You can get that on the shopping channel for $14.95.
I thought you could get one of those that does the garden. You know, that mows the lawn. It turns round. But
Yeah. But it just and the little bit when she pulled up the flap to put the thing and take the thing out, it looked cheap and nasty. It looked like shopping channel stuff. So again, I bring it back to the original point. I'm not seeing the money, and Doctor Who has looked better.
Well, the last thing on this one before we move off the burning issues and actually move on to the ratings and the criteria. Oh, the ratings. Now, Michelle mentioned this, John mentioned this, and I think a lot of you in different ways have mentioned this incel thing. I had to look it up after it was mentioned. You know that she does say these words. Verada Sithu's character says, Planet of the Incels. I mean, number one, the vocab, I did make the point last night. In Genesis of the Daleks, I was age 6, and they said words like insubordination and genocide. I had to look them up. So that's my bar. But incels is a different type of vocab because it's taken us down an awkward road. There's an awful lot of unpacking for poor parents to do there, and I don't think that's necessary when they want their kids to watch Doctor Who.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And someone in the comments earlier made a really great comment that this seemed like it was RTD attacking the fans who disagree with his error. You're the incel. You're the problem.
And yet he sets the definition. He sets the rules. I don't necessarily agree with
because
that.
he's all powerful and he's smarter and much more erudite than us mere poor mortals.
Yeah. Because he's captured the debate, he's captured the platform.
Because not only is he right, he's on the right side of history, you know.
It's trigger words, buzzwords. He's dropping them in on purpose to trigger people, but also to get children to go, well, not all children, because some of them will not notice it, but they'll go, what does that mean? What does that mean? My niece is 6 years old. She would pick up on that, like that.
Kids aren't watching this. We've seen the ratings. This is not being. We're not seeing toys being made from this. This is not kids watching this.
I asked my friend. Oh, sorry, Brendan.
No, sorry. I think he's seen the ratings.
I asked my friend who doesn't watch Doctor Who. He's not a fan of Doctor Who, and I said that we had the sperm and egg mentioned, we had the coercive control, and we had the incels mentioned, and they were all mentioned as words rather than integrating into the plot naturally, you know. And he said, then that should be a children's show. Straight up.
And where's the trigger warning?
None.
You can have a trigger warning for the
triggered.
savages. A trigger warning for the savages. You're not going to have a trigger warning for mention all the stuff that you've just said, Rachel.
No, all the way through, you know, with what was going on with Belinda and Alan, you got that something was going on and it wasn't perhaps very nice, and it was just in general wasn't good, and that was all fine, right up until she said coercive control. As soon as she said that, that's when I took issue with it.
Yeah.
That's the same part where I was having problems with. Again, it's like you got in bubble, like, oh, this isn't all that bad. Oh, come on.
Yeah, was that needed? Don't want to look like you. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that was a really bad American accent. Sorry.
That was you're kind of working very good on the Valley Girl.
Oh, thank you.
The other thing is, if you want to upspeak, you have to turn everything into a question at the end of your sentence.
Oh, really?
I'm
just getting acting
That's
lessons.
how you upspeak.
So, John, what were you going to say then?
No, I agree with everything that Rachel just said, and it's this notion that I had to create the whole word, the word incel. I'm not down with the kids anymore, so apparently it's from the two words involuntarily celibate. Okay, creates the word incel. So, in other words, what we're saying is that these people, nobody wants to touch them sexually because they're because of their toxic masculinity, because of their dorkiness, because of the fact they sit at home typing on a keyboard each day, whatever, any one of these things. Now, you can create a character like that without having to use the word incel. She inserted that in, or he did rather, Russell Davies did, by getting his character to say that. And this is the thing about this current generation of, for want of a better phrase, wokery, is everything boils down to sex and sexuality with them. You just can't, have exposition about, whether something might be an issue of racism, there might be an issue of sexism, there might be of misogyny. All of these things exist in the world and need addressed. But practically everything comes down to sex and sexuality with this current iteration of Doctor Who. And that's it's particularly disturbing in a programme aimed at children, or with children as part of this bigger market. Yeah. And you're quite right, Rachel, when you say that word incel being inserted into this without the trigger warning is absolutely done quite deliberately, so that Russell Davies has made sure that somewhere in the land a parent is having to have a conversation with a child over this, a conversation that parent hasn't engendered, and that's shocking, absolutely shocking.
And on top of that, Paul, when I was teaching 11 to 18, we spent a lot of time talking about relationships and consent. Mm-hmm. In other words, the full package, proper relationships. We weren't, getting bogged down in, as John was saying, this bit and this bit. And those awkwardnesses, that's for specific lessons. We were talking just about the difficulties and complexity of relationships. RTD, as John's saying there, is bringing it down to egg and to sperm. In Rogue, it's lust, and it's just lusting after somebody. He's not going bigger and talking about the growth of a relationship. It's all this kind of reductive idea. It's quite immature, actually.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, I made a bad joke in the comments. He thinks more about sex than some teenagers do.
Yeah, Paul?
He's so eager to insinuate it into his narrative that I think he just makes it basic. I think rather than make it complicated and give it the nuance that you're suggesting, which would be correct, of course, I think he feels the need to just put one lumped mass of the concept and get the point across like that. And it makes for a very, sometimes, not in the case of perhaps today's story or the current story, but certainly last year, it made for a very leaden experience. It meant that there wasn't any real storytelling. It was one ideological point to the next, and it was very clumsily done. I think that was...
He's a hack!
Well, you will have liked
I necessarily agree with that. I think he's allowing his craving for the insinuation of this ideology to supplant his talent. I think he's probably feeling that because of his achievements between 2005 to 2009, I think he's complacent, and he feels that he can, for want of a better term, dine out of that. So his talent, which I believe to be sizable, can take a back seat while he inserts these ideologies.
The thing is,
hold on, just 1 second. I absolutely understand. That's a far better and nuanced answer than me shouting as a hack. Absolutely, that's correct, and that's the difference between us. I'll go for the easy one line. However, you're quite right. He is resting on his laurels to the extent we're seeing a repetition in certain themes and memes in terms of the structure of the season, how the companions are met, what they do, and all the rest of it. So to that extent, That's exactly what a hack does, as far as I'm concerned. He just sits back, takes the money, and phones it in.
Yeah. Last season, I believe that to be the case, comprehensively. This current story, I don't. I believe either inadvertently or willfully, he's found a better balance between the messaging and the storytelling. Now, I don't think that's desirable. I don't want any messaging, and I'm not sitting here as a proponent for him or an apologist, but I feel that this current episode was several orders of magnitude an improvement compared to the dross that we got last year.
Well,
it's way better than Space Babies, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will show the grades. You will see the numbers in due course. Now, I just wanted, before we moved on, I said at the very beginning of my broke hack bingo scorecard that actually it was Simon, our contrarian, who pointed this out. You can hardly see it, but it says patient's name unknown, and then it says sex unknown. And I just think with everything they do, you wonder if there are digs about gender fluidity, sexual politics and everything. I'll have to zoom in on it eventually, but it's all there. You know, at every atom of Doctor Who, they're making digs about identity politics, gender politics, the lot. The Doctor's sex was always pretty clear. I think most people in Britain and America would say it's a man, isn't it? Then, of course, we had Geordie, and now they're playing silly games. So that's in essence what I just wanted to show you there as one of the items there. So those are our burning issues. Did that Satan itch for anybody? Right. The next problem. Oh, oh dear. Rachel's done a stream about this. I'll be streaming like a good one as a hay fever sufferer. Oh dear. The ratings. Does anybody want to mention them for a second? Here we go. Right. I tell you what, there's so much fun to play with these. Let's just spice it up for a second, because I like to spice it up. You know me with my musical items. Here we go. Yes, because when we talk about the ratings, we will also, I'll be asking you to play your ratings card right. Sorry, I'm cheap. I'm not clever.
Oh, yeah. Lower.
I'm terrible. I'm a glutton for a nice little idea. So, the ratings watch has been promoted. Now, first of all, I'll give you the headlines, as Rachel has as well, just to get you going and see what the thread in the panel think. And then after that, we get right into the scores. So, Robot Revolution was seen by 2 million dead. It was 2.05 actually, making it 37th of the week. I think it would have been in first place on marketing. So there you go, 2.05 million was the average for Doctor Who. Now, to give context, I think it's always important, because there's always some naysayer who says, oh, but don't you realise, Brendan, that the future's different, right? Well, here we go. 3.97 million were watching the other side. So they exist. The people exist. In fact, shall I say, double the audience was somewhere else and made an active choice. 2.05 million decided to watch Doctor Who, and just short of 4 million watched Britain's Got Talent. Ant and Dec lost to Chris Eccleston in 2005 with their Saturday Night Takeaway. They trounced RTD. They got their revenge. So there's the first little element to say there. Just to give you context, everybody, before I bring you in, there's our overnights for all the Doctor Who's before of this era. So you've got the Robot Revolution 2 million, the Legend of Ruby Sunday got 2.02, Boom got 2.04, Rogue got 2.1. We're in the twos, aren't we? That's kind of where we are. And just to show you an example of the TV at the moment, because people say, Brendan, you don't understand, nobody watches TV. And well, Antiques Roadshow can get 3.52 million on BBC One on a Sunday night. a documentary on the Americas can get 2.4 million.
I'd
£10.
like to watch the one on Pompeii. That sounds good.
Yeah, £10 Poms, which is about a drama about emigrating to Australia in the 60s, 3.2 million. There's your context, people. So, first port of call, what do you reckon to that one, Rachel? I know you'll have streamed about it. What do you reckon to the figures there? And I will do a 5-minute breakdown soon. Don't worry. Got it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, what a doozy that one is. I have done my video on it. It's not uploaded yet. It will be very soon, probably after this stream. But yeah, that's more than just pretty bad. You know, I know a lot of people say that the ratings for terrestrial viewing doesn't matter so much. But here in the UK, it does actually play a lot into effect as to what it tells the BBC, because the BBC will use that data. That's important data to them. Yeah. And also we can guess what it's going to probably round up to be. However, this score is consistent with what Gatwa has got for every single one of his stories, bar the Christmas specials for overnights. So it's consistent.
Yeah, it's killer. It's killer. I mean, yeah. Michelle, you were quite shocked because, I mean, people are having to give me scores and everything. And bless her, Michelle, you threw a prediction at me of 1.5 million, didn't you? So you're
I just kind of figured based off of how low the Christmas and how bad the Christmas one was, I figured we're going to have a lot lower rating. I probably will get 1.5 sometime this season, ever this continues. I mean,
John, did it shock you? Or are you thinking this is par for the course now? It's dying.
I'm actually with Michelle. I was surprised it got what it did. I expected to start in the ones.
And actually, Brendan, I sent you a text tweet, and it shows you the viewing numbers and how it dropped as the
Oh yeah, I've got it.
So that is really
You will see the 5-minute breakdown in a few moments' time.
That's very illuminating on how many people turned on and then said this is not for me and turned off.
Yeah.
So no, this 2 million is just it's an average, you know, and it's very favourable to the program.
Basically, how many people watched this weekend?
Doctor Who begins again, you know, for a lower bar than the last season, which was lower than the season before that. So it's constant.
Okay.
To be episodes 3 and 4.
John, say that again because you cut out.
I'm getting a lot of feedback too. I don't know where it's coming from.
I suspect I can hear my fan engaging from time to time, and it seemed to coincide with when you were all commenting on the feedback. So if it is my fault, which I suspect it might be, I'm sorry.
Do you have a fan, Paul? What's his name?
So what did you say, John?
Don't worry, Paul.
We missed it.
No, don't worry about it, Paul. It's absolutely fine. No, all I was saying was that this is the law of diminishing returns. Now, Doctor Who, year after year, season after season, is coming back to a less and less figure for a season opener. The only way here now, it will be downwards. It'll be interesting to see the 5-minute figures, absolutely. But nonetheless, I won't be at all surprised. Next week, we're down to the ones. And then further and further down, particularly as in the UK, from now on in, the weekends will presumably get lighter and warmer too. You know what, Brendan, I will be kind to Doctor Who here. That figure for Britain's Got Talent is nowhere near where it used to be years ago. It used to, Britain's Got Talent was 15, 16 million plus. Now it's down to 4 million. But the way you said it there, and it's very rarely do I agree with you, because 9 times out of 10 you're wrong.
I'm going to
this time round, you're absolutely right. It proves that there are 4 million people out there, in addition to the 2 million watching Doctor Who, ready to be entertained. They are there if you put
exactly
for them. Yeah. And they chose to go one place instead of another place. And you know what? I'll put my head on the line here. And I think people will also vote with their feet. And it'll show next week's figure to be even lower.
Well, as a lot of you know, I did sorry, Paul, I'll bring you in. I did a saloon at Christmas on the Joy to the World. And when you looked at the 5 minutes then, there's no escape for any TV executive trying to defend Doctor Who, because it was quite clear there was flatlining going on BBC One with EastEnders and Strictly and Doctor Who. None of them were bringing anything to the game. And so you can't say it's...
Before Doctor Who came on, it was the final of Gladiators, so it would have benefited from whatever audience was tuning in for that, which was greater than Who. It would have benefited from that, and then I've no doubt it would have benefited from people tuning in for the weakest link with Bonnie Langford.
Well,
afterwards.
I will show all that. I'm teasing you all, but I've got the 5-minute breakdowns of Gladiators, of Doctor Who, and then the weakest link afterwards.
Yeah.
But yes, look, I think the point, I mean, I know John's agreeing, and I'll say that again. John agreed with me that basically the 4 million compared to the 2 million shows an active choice. But the other thing is the variety, if you want to call it that, of Britain's Got Talent. You've got comedy, this, that, and the other. You've got Ant and Dec, and you've got a simple panel show. Doctor Who should be trouncing it. And it did in 2005. Because these are all formula programs on ITV. Ant and Dec's Saturday Night Takeaways, another kind of one of those light entertainment format shows. And Doctor Who in 2005 whopped it. Doctor Who is now a lame beast. And this is what's happened. Sorry, Paul.
Not in the least. It's actually quite synonymous with the point I was going to make. Event TV, despite what the establishment would have us believe, Event TV is still an important issue, and I think it's a useful index by which to gauge if a show is relevant anymore. I realise that cultures have changed, but not to the extent where it completely nullifies the idea of event television. And I think that sort of dissembling is reflective of how desperate they are. They simply aren't prepared to acquiesce to any reality regarding the adverse situation of the show.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Paul mentions Event TV there, because nowadays there's 3 opportunities for Doctor Who to be Event TV in terms of a normal season, not new Doctors or that. It's Christmas, it's beginning of a new season, and a season finale. And this was one of those events, beginning of a new season. And if all it can muster up is 2 million viewers against very formulaic, and now in its, I don't know how many years Britain's Got Talent's been running, 105 I think, but very formulaic television on the other side, and the best it can do is 2 million, is pretty poor for what should have been an event episode for Doctor Who.
Sorry to interrupt, but sorry to sort of jump in on the back of that, but that's also synonymous with what I've been thinking, because one thing about Britain's Got Talent, regardless of any currently attenuated ratings, it has the good sense to give the people what they want. It doesn't feel the need to tinker with its formula. It understands that it's a very crude form of entertainment, and it feeds on that because sometimes people are in the mood for that. By recognizing that and just propagating it to the best way that people can like it, I think that's a lesson to be learned. But
well, I mean, we're still discussing the ratings. We've got a lot more to discuss, but Rachel, obviously, thanks for sending me these. Let me just go bigger, because I know they're all smaller, but you were all over Disney and all the rest of it, and you were struggling, weren't you, to find Doctor Who?
Yeah, it took me ages. I mean, I have my own account on Flix Patrol, but you only have access to a certain amount of information. So, yes, and this is what I was able to find. I checked it yesterday. I've checked it today. It didn't chart on either day for the worldwide results. And I don't believe it charted either for just US results. And that's the results that they got for last year on the screen on the right-hand side. And last year, I can't really read it, but I think it says 951, so 951,000, I think it's minutes, isn't it, Michelle, that they do there? So 951 minutes, 951, no, I can't say it. 951,000 minutes viewed. Yeah. So it's not as having as much impact as they wanted to.
Here in the US, there was no promotion for the new season. There may have been an ad in front of Minecraft in the movies, but there was no promotion. The show, products like websites like Hot Topic or some of the other fan stuff, no new merch came out.
Now,
I'm wearing my jacket from last year.
Wow.
in
There's no
Britain,
new merch came out for like
in
on Hot
Britain,
Topic.
there is no excuse in Britain. The marketing has been at saturation rate. So when people say, Brendan, when you do your saloon analyses of the ratings, you know, Rachel, how people tell you how to do your channel, and they were saying, will you compare to EastEnders and Coronation Street? Yes, I will do. They are getting between 2 and 4 million. I've got some overnights in a minute that I'll show you. The point is, EastEnders isn't marketing like a good one. Coronation Street isn't marketing like a good one. But Doctor Who is absolutely saturation coverage. So you'd think, surely there's going to be a kind of Philip.
Yeah.
Now,
And Doctor Who's more expensive, so just
yeah. Can I just show you therefore the 5-minute breakdowns?
Go on then, please. I've seen
this will.
But you're tantalised us enough. Get them on.
Let me just talk you through these. Right.
I'm so excited.
So on the Gladiators program from start to finish added on its own 391,000 viewers. They didn't lose them. Doctor Who, in its duration, lost 212,000. So don't mention other programs. Gladiators built an audience. Doctor Who dropped an audience. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, once Gladiators finished, a lot of people thought, do you know what? I am not. Even I've seen loads of marketing, loads of hype, and it's been on everything. I am determined not to watch Doctor Who, even though I'm on the same channel. They actively, aggressively pressed a button. And so basically between 6:45 and 6:50, the audience, 919,000 went walkies. So let's just short of 1 million disappeared. That's how successful the ratings is. That's how successful the marketing is. That's how successful RTD's version of Doctor Who is. So on its reputation, they walked away. So 919,000 walked away. But it gets worse. Between 6:50 and, as you see there, 7:15, they lost another 329,000 viewers. So all the great editing, Disney money, RTD script, they lost another. So in total, between Gladiators finishing and 25 minutes into Doctor Who had managed to lose 1.248 million viewers. It retrieved 103,000 by the end, but that could be just because whatever. And then it does drop to weakest link. So weakest link was the weakest link there. But you look at the 5 minutes, I think yet again, it's an indictment of RTD's era. It tells you that Doctor Who as a name and a brand is a lame duck.
Well, look at the dropping once the incel section. Once we start having the plot change, you see right when the numbers start dropping is right when we had about the midpoint, when we start having the revelation of the villain. And people up to that point was like, okay, it's an okay episode. It's not the greatest. Oh, blink.
Or just parents deciding the minute they hear a word or suggestion of a conversation they don't want to have with their children.
Yep.
Blink. And changing channels to someone spinning plates on their backside on Britain's Got Talent. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I was the child of the 90s, and it was during the President Bill Clinton impeachment, and the things that were being discussed of a sexual nature and my grandma had ninja-like skills changing the channel so fast to come for TV to get. And tonight in the Bill Clinton impeachment, ninja skills. We changed the channel.
But all it takes to happen is once people having a short memory deciding Doctor Who might have been inappropriate last season, giving it another chance this season, halfway around, this sort of thing gets mentioned, blink, off it goes. They're not coming back next week either. So there's another section, apart from the people who might be bored with it, another selection of mums and dads or whoever it is sitting down with their kids deciding not appropriate because I'm not being forced into having a conversation with my children at the behest of this particular
writer. Can I also say it's a failure of so many things. 6:50 to 6:55, you're losing 100,000 straight away. Now, can you remember that the beginning of this episode did that mock pop quiche stuff where it's It's quicker paced. It's edited fast because it's the pre-credit sequence. One mistake, it had already been seen in loads of trailers. There was nothing new there, and that was the same with Joy to the World. Nothing new to see. But basically, if they think this is our style, we want it punchy, we want it faster, we want fast editing, and we'll just tell a story fast. Mrs. Flood's in the garden. We'll do all that. People turned away. It's not a style they're like. So well done, RTD. Thinking his pre-credit sequences that are the old part ones. Part ones normally actually is where you set the mood, built up the world, set up the mystery, and I loved classic part ones. If those first 5 minutes is a kind of, emulation of part one, disaster.
No, but Brent, it is, as I said, without going down a discussion of whether the structure of Modern Who is fit for purpose nowadays. And you and I have had a conversation recently where I do agree with you about the way forward now. Nonetheless, Doctor Who is an increasingly shrinking audience, more hardcore, if you like. And they're even peeing those people off because they're switching off as the episode begins and goes down and down and down. This is not the way to run a program.
No,
for me,
not at all.
For me, the first 5 minutes I found it quite impressive in terms of, I don't like the nature of the story that they were telling, but just judging the quality of the storytelling formulation, I found it very impressive. There was very quickly no small amount of intrigue built up, together with progression from that intrigue. I found myself invested. Like I said,
I found it very. That's interesting you say that, Anthony. Paul, sorry, because I found it fairly standard. We've seen it all before, and secondly, it just doesn't look as good as it should do, considering the amount of money being spent on it. I could barely hear at times. Some of the stuff that way, but
I fully understand your conviction.
I didn't understand little things like he's a scientist, he's a clever man, is the Doctor. And there's a point in this edited sequence that lost viewers, remember, the viewers have spoken, and basically he stands underneath a rocket shouting Belinda. I liked it. He does realise that the rocket won't hear him. It just makes it. I know it's a soap opera. It's a soap opera moment, I know, where basically it's like, you just miss the girlfriend getting on the ship and the goodbye. It's a soap opera moment. Well done,
I didn't see it as a soap opera moment. There's a degree to which verisimilitude can be circumvented to the effect of producing a meaningful moment, a moment where characters can either experience something emotional or emote themselves. I felt that this is such a case. I think sometimes if you apply too much exactitude to too great an extent, you can deconstruct it too far. I felt that was a good moment. I felt that was a Doctor Who moment.
Yeah, I would agree with Paul with that. I would, yeah, because Doctor Who's melodrama ultimately, So you have these moments of melodrama. Brendan, on the scientific side of things, obviously the Doctor should know better. But you know what? There's all sorts of things going.
No. But
for goodness sake, you can control room into
I will therefore explain myself in a different way as well. Because
let me just emphasize the point, though. Hold on, just go back before you justify. Although I'm agreeing with Paul, I still maintain that in terms of a season opener and in terms of a cold opening, we've seen it all before. It was nothing there. So in terms of
what I wanted to say was, obviously, I have skin in the game. I am saying here that I know that I can't have exactitude and I can't have everything done like a documentary, but he has decided as a producer to do a 45-minute wham bam thank you ma'am plot. I didn't decide that. That's his decision. It's a mistake. A 4-episode story could have had nuance, could have gone slower, and could have been a lot more enjoyable and not done stupid moments like that. That are unnecessary.
That may well be so, but in the context of it being a 45-minute episode, I felt
his choice.
I felt that I agree. I'm not disputing that. He's done that since coming back.
And I think he's missing a trick.
Possibly, but I can only comment in the context of what was presented. And I'm not simply going to use the fact that he chose to do it in a 45-minute format to be overly critical. I felt this story worked.
It's not to be overly critical. I'm not being overly critical. I'm just making the simple point. He lost the viewers. That is a fact that I think TV executives should be slightly more bothered about than
I'm not
smoke.
suggesting they shouldn't, but I'm not judging it in that context. I'm judging it on how I responded within myself to this episode. What pleased me? What satisfied me? What made it feel like Doctor Who for me? So it's immaterial to me whether it was in a 45-minute episode or not.
Paul, when have you seen the Doctor do a soap opera moment, like shouting at a...
I didn't feel it was a soap opera moment. I feel that's your perception of it. But it was
where have you seen it in Doctor Who before?
It wasn't my interpretation of it, so I can't really comment on it. I liked that scene. I liked what it had to say. It was momentous. It was momentous.
Right, and about 200,000 people didn't.
Well, I can't speak for 200,000 people. I can only speak for myself. I'm not watching a representative or a proxy of somebody else or some 2,000 people.
Good for you, Paul. You tell them. Good for you.
I instinctively like or dislike.
Yes, I know, but you also said I was being unfair in my treatment. I'm making a valid... I'm respecting your opinion, and I'm actually saying...
I didn't say you were being unfair. I said you were being overly critical. I thought you replied like that. I don't recall saying you were being unfair. I don't recall saying that.
Well, I think it's on the...
Paul, I'm glad you're here because this is normally me.
This is what we want. I mean, we don't want everyone agreeing. It's boring as hell.
It's like disagreeing with you.
I know.
If I did say unfair, then that was uncalled for. I don't think that I did, though. I think I said overly critical.
No, we're enjoying getting edgy with each other. That's what it's all about. Because this is... Doctor Who fans will be in a pub now, if they were in a pub, and not being cancelled. And they argue about like stuff like this because the point is... For one Doctor Who fan who likes the beginning, there'll be loads of
the point here is that we still all love each other, and we're not going to cancel each other and block each other on social media. You don't think like me, you evil istophobic.
I still refer back to my original point, which is that as a cold open for a season opener, it was same old. And just if we'd seen something different, it might have held on to a couple of tens of thousands of viewers. And who knows what that might have done to the viewing figures overall. But it's just fairly bog standard. Russell Davies, Doctor Who, whether or not the physics of him shouting at the either departing rocket are right or wrong.
I have to give examples because just like I you don't want me to do exactitudes. This stream can't go on for 24 hours while I explain every point. But Rachel, I was wanting to, linking to John's point and kind of trying to back up mine slightly. In 2005, Rose started with a pop sequence, heavily edited, to compress a lot of plot quickly because he wanted his 45-minute formula. It worked then, but 20 years later, we're doing, as John said, exactly the same again.
It's true. It's a regurgitation. However, I think with regards to this story, I think it was trying too much to be like a Stephen Moffat story. Timey-wimey, yes. And I think that's created a lot of what the issue is. So the opening, I don't mind the opening. Yes, I understand your point about it being a little bit soapy and all of that. But I also see where Paul's coming from with that. I see both sides here. But yes, I do think that it suffers from the style of Moffat. It makes the biggest mistake. We'll get into this in a minute of not following the Doctor through the timey-wimey stuff. Yeah. It goes through what Belinda is doing instead, and that's a problem. Anyway, yes. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what Paul's saying. I understand what everybody's saying.
When we get to the plot, when we do get to the plot, I mean,
Rachel, Rachel, please explain to me what it was that I was saying. I'm gonna
look at what you were saying too, John. Don't worry.
Now, what I wanted to do is obviously we play your ratings cards right. So obviously next week we have looks, and of course
lower.
I will be asking what everybody predicts and where you think where it will go, basically. whether it be higher or lower, as John's just been doing there. Now, just to give you a bit more context, sorry, I was getting lost there. So if you just look at this is a classic end of March 2024. I've just been trying to kind of show you examples of what goes on. You can see Britain's Got Talent there. It tends to add just short of 2 million from its overnights. But you've got in 6th, 7th and 10th place, you've got soap operas. You've got Coronation Street getting around 3 million to 3.3, and it later on adds 1 million extra. Emmerdale just short of 3 million. So that's roughly what's been going on in the last year with soaps and everything, when the hype has stopped and the marketing has stopped. So let's just get everybody all fired up. So I'm going to give you some thinking time, and the same with the thread. I want you all to say what you think the rating will be next week. It was 2.05 for episode 1. Knowing what you know now, knowing how Britain's Got Talent is going to start going live soon. That was a recorded show. So what does everybody think regarding the figures for next week? Higher, lower, or stick? So here we go. Okay. So for some reason, I think I like the music. So Michelle, you were the first one on the block. I mean, I didn't ask anyone for ratings and you offered them, so thank you very much. So Michelle, what's happening next week with looks?
I'm saying it's going down. Though this is the one episode I'm most curious to see of the season, because it is the period piece and it does incorporate animation a little bit, so that's my only good excuse for the Disney money. I'm 1.9 to 1.8.
1.9 to 1.8.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going for lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lower. I think it's going to be how low can we go?
Okay, Rachel.
I'm going to say, oh gosh, this is tough because they've been pretty consistent on the overnights. So I'm going to say a tiny bit lower. So 1.9 to the 2. So it's almost lower to stick. I don't even know if you can do that. You can't do that in this game, can you? No, that sucks.
You can.
I can. Okay.
Because in Play Your Cards Right, sometimes they say, oh no, it's a middle card. Oh no.
All right.
They say freeze.
I will say freeze. Freeze. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going for a freeze.
But it could be 1.9, so I do acknowledge that it could go down.
Yes. So,
but it could go up.
So, Paul, what do you reckon?
I was thinking 1.98. I saw Peter Harrington post the same in the chat, but I promise I came with mine independently. But 1.98 was what I was thinking.
So is that a freeze or a bit lower you're saying there?
Slight drop, I think. Slight drop.
Slight drop. So, John, where are you going to put your little tea leaves and predictions?
Couple of things. Okay, well, let's continue the Play Your Cards Right theme. And say if I went for the same as Rachel and said 1.9, that's a pair, and you don't get anything for a pair. Not in this game, Brucey used to say, but it will drop. It'll drop to 1.9, although it may drop even further depending if Susan Boyle's on Britain's Got Talent be doing something spectacular with Simon Cowell. It could even fall lower than that.
Yeah.
Who knows? 1.9
RTD will be dreaming a dream. I think, right. Okay, so as far as I said, Brendan, do we get a Brucey bonus if we guess it right? Oh, God. Do you want me to do a sense for your mug? No. Right.
Cuddly boy. What about Cuddly Suitor?
I'm going to say 1.85. There you go. 1.85 from myself, because I think, well, we've said a few reasons why we think it's going to kind of wobble around. So we'll see where we are next week. So 1.85, and we've got, most people are saying it's going to be roughly the same to a bit lower. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, okay, there's only one little subject to do now, which is to actually give our marks and discuss the episode in all its details. So, of course, this is where we really bounce around. So, of course, let me just let myself get set up here again. So, oh, God, yes, folks. There he is with a little toy, RTD. Do you want me to scare everybody? He did an interview, just another one, during the premiere, and he was talking about the planet of the incels and everything. And there's certainly a lot of conversation about how sci-fi can tell us stories of the present through the settings of the future. And he said, no, I absolutely believe in putting the modern world into every drama. I did it with Midsummer Night's Dream, blah, 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 blah. And so it's something I don't even need to think about. It's how I live, darling. It's how I breathe. It's the only way I can exist. It's what I think writing is for. So now in 2025, when we have a robot story, Doctor Who's been having robot stories since '63. But now with your robot story, it will be fallacious and mendacious if you didn't use the letters Al in there, because that's what we're talking about. And it's a completely natural thing to do, he says. Now, the last thing I want to show you, just to get your responses, is this. He was asked the question, as we're just starting out season 2 on Disney Plus, are you already in the planning stages for season 3? Now, you saw my stream and other people's streams the other day when he made a cock up or loose lips over news round, and he said, pause. This is what he said here. We'll always look ahead to the future if we get the chance to keep running. I've got ideas. I think I'll do that near season 4 or 5. And that's always the way I've worked on things. So yes, I could promise you amazing stuff at the end of season 4. There are things we've already made through to a long time into the future. So that's just the fun of it. But to say again, it's the pit stops along the way. Well, what do you reckon? I mean,
when did he say this? Sorry,
at the premiere.
Really? Sorry, he said this at the premiere.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. How bizarre. Even though he said what he said on news round.
Yeah, I know. I think he's got a cover story and he's letting things slip. I think there's, as you all know, you can say two things at the same time that sound different and they're both true. He has planned ahead. Whether he's got the job to do it is a different matter.
It's like the Andrew Cartmel master plan. You know, I have a plan, but we never got to see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's also he's grifting for work, isn't he? He's going, I've planned the next few seasons. Give me the job. Give me the commission.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's also setting people up for the possible shock that it could be phased out, and phased out lasted for a certain amount of time, which I know won't go down with people who are still enjoying the show.
Or Rachel, according to Brendan, people like me who are about to pop it.
Ah.
Die, that is.
Oh.
Didn't that what you said the last time?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did you say the last time that I was going to be arrested again? I should be worried because I might not last long enough to see it come back.
Well, what were the wilderness? 20 wilderness years for 20 years?
16.
20.
16. Well, the McGann movie.
Yeah.
The fact is that in today's world, if we go into a wilderness years again, there is no guarantee that Doctor Who's coming back.
It may not even.
The fact that it came back in 2005 was a miracle. It's like lightning captured in a bottle. That was a unique time in our entertainment history, that at that time RTD was able to capture something magical, and there's no guarantee, because at this point, from what I've heard, the only thing that's keeping Doctor Who going is the classics.
I think what people
I would say
is that when the show was brought back in 2005, Brendan and I were discussing this. I think there was a lot of affection for it still, not only from fans, but from people who weren't fans. I had many friends who I knew weren't fans, were quite happy to gossip about whether or not the Daleks would come back or whether or not the TARDIS would return. I think there was a lot of goodwill towards it, because even the non-fans recognised it as a British institution that had been...
It's part of your cultural heritage. I don't see it as anymore.
And I think this leads into the idea of an expectancy, because for it to come back successfully, it has to have been missed. And given the machinations that we've borne witness to regarding Davies et al., what is there to miss? What is there that will regenerate, excuse me, that goodwill and affection that was present even in non-fans back in 2005? I think it's a bleak outlook. I truly do.
You know, as a newer fan, I've heard countless people say that their origin story of being a Doctor Who fan was watching Rose because their mom and them dad sat them down and said, "This was a show I loved to watch when I was your age," or this is something that we all watched together, and we're all going to sit down together and watch this.
Oh, they got a better introduction than I did.
Well, everybody, I think we've been talking for quite a long time, and we really need to get on to the episode. So let's do it. Now, last year it was the Scars on the Sarcophagus stores. This year I've obviously ramped it up for a new season. So here we go, folks. So the Tombstone totalizer. Now, the way I'm going to do it this year, everybody, just to be fair, is so that you actually see the results coming through as we go. So, of course...
Oh, is it like new revision?
Yeah, a bit like that. So I'll quickly explain to people, if they've not watched us do these reviews before, we have 3 criteria, because we don't want to just look as though we're being subjective without any real kind of empirical and anecdotal data coming like this way. Criteria 1, safeguarding of who I call it, true who or boo-hoo. Does it look like Doctor Who? Is it the Doctor? Second one is the use of production values. Now, some people still misinterpret this in the thread and think what I'm trying to say is if it's got expensive budgets, it'll always get 10 out of 10. No, what I mean is you can have the biggest budget going, but if they misapply the resources, for example, a lot of us said in Boom that big LED screen was an utter waste and didn't add to the story, the drama, or anything. That's a misuse of the production resources, I would suggest. And the last one there is, did it engage you? Did it grab you? And did the resolution satisfy you? And so that's what we are judging on. And of course, whatever we debate tonight, and we could convince each other, the point is the results are locked in. I've got the results, they cannot be changed. And just so people understand, I've got the results now. I am like that bod from Stockholm or somebody at the Eurovision. Yes, I'm sat behind that desk in a suit and I've got all the results and I know who's won. So basically here, if it's outstanding, you get 9 or 10 allocated, and you go all the way down to special measures. We use that for our English Ofsted rules. And last year, just to show you what the score was, God, I mean, those were dire. But Legend of Ruby Sunday got the most from our panel, and the Devil's Cord tanked at the bottom. So that's basically the context of our scoring. So, of course, I suppose we better get on with... And so what we'll do is we'll start with criteria 1, which is, was it Doctor Who? Was it True Who or Boo-hoo? And as we discuss that, I'll then, after each category, I'll show you what the results were, and then we'll have the final one at the end. So, okay, so Michelle, if you can remember roughly what you said about this one, you give it a fairly decent score for the safeguarding of who?
I do, and it's funny. It's like when you originally put your reviews down, you're thinking one thing, and then when I watch this, what you all have to say is like, yeah, I totally agree. It's so hard to justify this error because you're just trying to, grade it on a blank sandwich and figuring out which worse is blank sandwich. So yes, at the time, I felt like, is it classic Who? No. Is it even like the modern Who? No. But it is slightly consistent with what we saw last season. So if we're going on a tonal shift, yeah, it's somewhat consistent with what we've seen before from this era.
I mean, you did say, Michelle, because obviously people send me comments and everything, you did say, yeah, you felt a bit more doctorish.
He did to a certain degree. I mean, he's not... Yes, he's still vacillating, but not on a level that we've seen the last time. He was able to get it together pretty quickly this time instead of having to have a companion come and slap him.
I mean, there was an element of it. I said to Jamie as I was watching, I was thinking, I'm not shouting at the telly, so that's progress. Last year I was shouting at the TV.
Oh.
I was actually in parts just thinking, right, okay, you know, the plot's a bit this and the plot's a bit that, but actually I was still watching, if you get my gist. So I do feel as though we've made progress there. I suppose the Doctor was doing more Doctor things, you know, within the TARDIS and various gadgets. I thought that's a bit more on track. So I could see where you were coming from, Michelle.
We actually see him piloting the TARDIS. You know, we actually see like the TARDIS, not a lot, but more than we've seen it in a long time. Though I still don't understand why they can't have a view screen and have to always open up the door to see where they're at. It's like Bugs Bunny, like, I should have taken the left turn at Albuquerque. We can't have a screen on this thing.
And it did feel like, Rachel, in many ways, and I had to say, it felt a bit Doctor Who, because there were moments when I thought, oh, this is just what I like. So, for example, when they hit that kind of strange time force field thing, that's Doctor Who to me, and I thought, yay, I like a bit of that. So, Michelle, not Michelle, sorry, I put that. Rachel, your scoring is not the same as Michelle's on this issue of True Who or Boo Who.
No, I was a lot harsher. Once I got the scoring system correct, that was. my score went up after I got the scoring system correct. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I had to ask myself, obviously, does it feel like Doctor Who? And obviously, I've analysed this in a great detail because obviously I did my own review of it on my channel. And yes, it does. It had the robots in it. It had a revolution. It had spaceships. It also had the evil man trope. And you know what I'm getting at there with you've seen my notes. However, the issue that I had was that there were too many gaps to fill. I mentioned earlier, but I didn't really go into any details, that it was trying to be like a Moffat story. Now, Brendan, funny enough, you said that it was all bang, 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 and it was banging it out as quickly as you can. And I think this story could have benefited from either being longer or being over a couple of parts, because it was going off with different timelines. There was too many gaps that he wanted the audience to fill in for themselves as to what went on with the Doctor. Well, what happened to the Doctor in those 6 months? How did he become the historian? How did he figure out that the robots can't hear every 9 words, which was absolutely ridiculous because they only used that when it suited them? And how did he connect with Belinda? How did he find out that Belinda was going to be a problem? You know, there were all these things that we had to fill in for ourselves. And meanwhile, whilst the Doctor's off doing that, and we don't know how he gets there, we've got Belinda just, oh yeah, well, I've been here 2 hours and this has all happened to me, and we've seen it all. When Moffat does those types of stories, even in Joy to the World, which I know was contentious, he follows the Doctor's point of view and how the Doctor meets back with the person that he's supposed to be connecting with, and it works a lot better. So for that reason, I gave it a 4. I was harsh. Needs improvement.
So to be fair, Michelle gave it 7 out of 10. You've given it 4 out of 10, and we've got some debate on whether this feels Doctor-ish and all the rest of it.
There were good points, though.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I thought it was a shame that we couldn't, like you said on the viewpoint, we couldn't just. You see, Space Babies and Devil's Cord, I thought, suffered being on the same night because they were playing lots of crazy experimental tricks together. It was too much all at once. And we've just had Joy to the World and then this one. And in Joy to the World, it does the same thing, Rachel.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, Anita, he's playing Ludo and Snakes and Ladders with Anita for a year.
Yeah.
Well, we see a bit of it, of course, but that's the timey-wimey I'm not interested in. It's just a cheat. And of course, one of the biggest cheats, John, was of course, because we have all these edits and we don't see everything through the Doctor's eyes and all the rest of it, we were tricked as viewers because we didn't see that bit regarding the toxic male when he was chatting up and proposing to his girlfriend or whatever and making her a star with a certificate, we didn't see that he also said she has to wear tight clothing. They kept that till the end. That's a cheat, really.
Yeah. So what? It's hack writing, lazy writing. That's just it was what it was. In terms of the criteria, or the criterion safeguarding the program, this is quite identifiably Doctor Who in that there's a planet, somebody's oppressed, the Doctor turns up, and by the end of the episode, the rebels have won and the planet is no longer oppressed. That's bog standard. Doctor Who's been doing that since the middle 60s. So to that extent, yeah, it's Doctor Who. It's everything else that surrounds it and if you like, dilutes that essential core story so we end up talking about toxic masculinity or the lazy writing or the fact that Russell Davies tries to do Moffat and isn't as good as doing Moffat as Moffat. So that's that. Had he just kept it as a straight liberation type story of the type Doctor Who can do in his sleep, then it may well have been different. Yeah. So to that extent, yeah, it's Doctor Who. The other stuff surrounding it, not so much. When I texted you last night, Brendan, about this, I made it clear to you because I changed my view in this program because of last year. I was overly, and I wasn't alone. I was overly optimistic about the future. I was so happy to have Russell Davies back in control and Chris Chibnall back out the door that I was probably overly generous. But because I got my fingers burnt, Doctor has to go a long way now to impress me. So I'm starting from the opposite point of view now. I'm perhaps overly critical of many of the things that are being shown to me. So to that extent, I gave this a 4. Because as far as I was identifiably Doctor Who, it's still because of all the other stuff going on right about it, some of which you mentioned when you led into me there, it's still getting muddied. The water's getting muddied, the core story's getting diluted. There's too much nonsense surrounding this. Just give the Doctor a nice identifiable silhouette. He steps out of the TARDIS, he's a bit of an eccentric, and as you said, Rachel, and I think Michelle also said, follow the Doctor's story as he meets these people and defeats the villain of the week, if you like. That way around we do, because otherwise we get to the story that people are now saying that the Doctor is the second character in his own show. And that's always been an accusation. It's about New Who, purely, if I may finish, just sorry, but I won't keep you longer, purely because of the fact that these writers are more interested in their own creations than they are in an old creation. So the new companions and the characters of the week in a new story will always gain the ascendancy as far as Russell Davies, Steve Moffat, God help us, even Chris Chibnall, although he couldn't create a character for Toffee, would be. So the Doctor has always been the secondary character in his own show since New Who came back.
I give it 5, and my reason why I give it 5 on the True Who or Boo Who and Safeguarding and all that jazz is partly linking in with what John's saying there as well, because my 5 is because the Doctor's still not solving things. At the end, we needed Belinda again. If she hadn't touched with the certificate, the diploma, sorry, it says certificate, but they kept saying diploma, and everybody's reading into that. That moment at the end, it's all down to the companion solving it. It's down to Ruby Sunday solved it. Ruby Sunday put the leash on Sutek. The Doctor was blooming useless. All that, too many times, I accept this is an introduction story to Belinda Chandra. So, of course, she's going to be given more prominence than hopefully usual. The trouble is the Doctor the Doctor's idea to help the robot revolution was just to become a historian and get promoted in interviews and wait for her to turn up. I mean, God, it's revolutionary stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. Does that mean throughout the entire 6 months as he worked his way up the promotional ranks, that all these people were dying, getting killed, being oppressed, and the Doctor just looked on? Mm-hmm. Is that what we're told?
He couldn't go in there 6 months and save the rebellion. I mean, go back to the classic era. The Fifth Doctor saved Frontios with a freaking coat rack. I mean, this Doctor couldn't save people in 6 months.
But did the Doctor not offer his own self-sacrifice though? Surely that, to quite a large extent, should fulfill some of the criteria for being the Doctor.
I didn't. You see, I mean, obviously, we'll come to your score and what you think, obviously, because you think differently. Honestly, on the true who or boo who, concept, the Doctor saving her by hugging her and pulling her back from this time event. Yes, very hocus pocus time lordy stuff. But I've been watching the Three Doctors and Mordrin Undead and various moments, even Boom, when he said he is a time event. It's very dangerous to do these things. Touching antimatter, Arc of Infinity, we have all this stuff. Then suddenly, as she'd worked out, Belinda, if I touch him, there'll be a major explosion. And I've never seen in the Doctor Who history where he's able, as this Time Lord, surreal being, he just hugs somebody and pulls them back out. I didn't see any self-sacrifice. I just thought it's a little bit Space Jesus again.
I would have liked to have seen how he would have got to that point.
You could offer the same.
Go on, Paul. You give it 7 out of 10, didn't you?
Sorry, is this me? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I did indeed. I felt that this was emphatically Doctor Who. Notwithstanding the fact that the subject material was very questionable, and were it up to me, I wouldn't have it anywhere near a show like this, a family show. But given that that's what we have to address, I felt that this really did cover pretty much every core element of what makes Doctor Who. There was the intrigue, there was the decent pace, there was the Doctor interacting very well and being supportive of and encouraging to a beleaguered species. I think he also facilitated Belinda to be as helpful as she could, the best person she could be. I know that's a little trite, but that was the impression I got. Yes, I think it was. And the self-sacrifice that I mentioned, I think the sequence of events led very nicely from each other. And I felt that this was emphatically Doctor Who. Once again, I have to caveat that with the fact that the subject material was questionable. But once we're confronted with that as a fait accompli, then that's how I have to judge it. Emphatically Doctor Who.
Yeah, and like I said, there were TARDIS moments. I like a bit of TARDIS moment. Seeing the TARDIS outside the spaceship when she was kidnapped reminded me of the Runaway Bride, slightly on the motorway. You got little moments, and I realised that in my heart I like a bit of TARDIS action. So hit those little moments and beats, so to speak. But yeah, on Doctor Who, True Who or Boo Who, so you've got our scores there. Michelle 7, Paul 7, John 4, Rachel 4, and myself 5. So that's where we are. So what does that do to the Tombstone totalizer? There it is. So basically on Safeguarding of Who, I've percentaged it. As you do. I can give you the number. It's 27 out of 50, but basically that's 54%. And I'm always going to do percentages because if I have a panel of 6 or 4 or 3, I can always do the percentage if you get my gist. So there's a consistency there. So on the first one, Thread, look at that. 54% of their potential score for Safeguarding. Now we move straight on to the one that I think is sometimes confused by some people. Like I said, you don't mention everything on that list there, like director, music, set. Oh God, you'd be there forever. What you say is, in that episode or in that story, with what was available, did it make it a comedy if that's what it wants to be? Did it make it romantic if that's what it's trying to be? If it's trying to be a sci-fi drama, did it make it work? So this will be interesting. So Michelle, on this one, you gave 7.
I thought even though I didn't understand what was going on, the segment where they're like going back when they touched the certificates with each other, and that psychedelic acid trip was probably one of the most stunning things I've seen in a long time on Modern Who. Kind of reminded me a lot of stuff we've seen in the classic era. Yeah. I mean, for that was impressive. I couldn't understand what was going on, but it was impressive. And I also thought the music was probably some of the most toned down we've seen in a while. Though they still are not quite sure of putting the Doctor's theme in the right area because he really doesn't do anything to deserve the Doctor's theme, or this Doctor's theme. But So again, I was appreciative that we were not seeing a whole episode of shooting in a kilt or a skirt or a score or whatever the heck that was, because it adds nothing to the character. So in that era, yeah, it looks pretty, but it can still be a turd sandwich and still look pretty.
Yeah, and I mean, and I do recall, John, you were talking earlier about the sets and stuff like that. I mean, but where did you go on this one, John? I've got you down as 4 for this one.
Yeah, it's 4. Again, needs improvement. Again, a huge budget. I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. It was cartoon-like, and I understand that that's perhaps a directorial and an artistic choice to look that way. There were certain comic, cartoony qualities to the story, so that may well have been a choice. But there were moments when I just looked at this and thought, this is very obviously actors standing against the green screen, and they've keyed all this in behind them. There was nothing there to make me think otherwise, and why that may be better green screen than it was 10 years ago or even 40 years ago when Barry Letts was doing it during John Pertwee's time. It's still very much green screen, and it's keyed in the background. It's quite a cost-effective way of doing television. So I'm not seeing the Disney money. Also, there was a few odd directorial choices. I noticed this right at the end. That whole scene, which I thought was quite a good scene, setting up the season, about Belinda not wanting to be with the Doctor and the Doctor trying to get her home. All of that was done in a long shot. We didn't really get much in the way of close-ups. And I wondered why that was done. We didn't get to see Belinda's reaction or the Doctor's frustration. It was all done in a two-shot from behind the gantry on the TARDIS. And when you notice something like that, you tend to think, all right, there's something wrong with it because I've noticed this thing, and I'm expecting the language of television would make me expect a close-up now or expect a tighter two-shot, whatever. But the fact that I didn't get that made me think that it was lacking. So that was a no directorial choice. So yeah, as I say, I may well be overly harsh, but at the minute needs improvement.
Okay, Rachel.
Yes, so I took a look at the costumes in this regard. Not the actors. Normally I would do the actors, but I am looking at the costumes this time. So I'm not too keen on the robots. However, so that because of that, I had to knock off a few points. However, I looked specifically, despite what I said about this earlier, at the Al character, you know, the augmented machine, Alan, and his like full like get up, the silver machinery get up. I really like what they did with that. I do wonder how they did it, but it looks like that some of the Disney money, yes, it could be spent more and done a lot more with, but some of the Disney money has gone onto some practical costumes for the actors, and I think that worked, despite what Russell T Davies has said about that being problematic. But it was better than the slugs that we got last year. So I applaud the fact that they put effort into the costume for that character.
Are you talking also perhaps about Shooty's wardrobe? Is he getting on the millions of that?
No, they can't afford that because they put it towards Alan, you see. I saw the breakdown. No, I didn't see the breakdown, but yeah. I liked it. I like what they did with Alan's costume when he was augmented into the machine.
Half a costume.
Yeah. It was really good. And the makeup was really good for that.
I mean, the design and the paint backdrop and everything, you know, it's very Dalek Metal City stuff, you know, that gets me.
I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've given it a 7. I've given it a 7 for use of production resources. And the reason not 10, by the way, because there's some, like I said, my favourite shot on thinking, gosh, Doctor Who's really gone to town now, is that moment when at the Al generators at the end of the room, and there's the design of that. But as they're walking towards it, that electricity all firing up and down, and the whole room, I thought, oh my God, Doctor Who never was able to actually do it on that scale before. So stuff like that worked. I actually
And
thought,
Al was impressive. The makeup and the prosthetics to make him look like that was like probably some of the most cinematic, best, props to the people who did that on the actor. I mean,
Yeah, but can I interrupt at this point as well, just to bring it back to that self-save point? Imagine if you just got somebody with more acting chops to do that part. I think it would have carried that part a whole lot better. But I just got lost in the fact that all I heard out of all that lovely costume and makeup was a northern accent. And I know that may well have been intentional, but I just thought better actor, better presence, better delivery would have sold that more. But that we're taking money, and I'm not saying the money.
and the reason I docked 3 points in the end for multiple reasons, but one of them is, right, you've got all this money, and it's a bit like what Rachel said. I thought the robots, I seem to have an issue with these robots because there's plenty of them. They do a fancy thing with their face, but are they meant to scare the kids? The gun scares the kids, I would have thought, because it actually killed a fair few people. But I just thought, for the use of the money and for the use of all the talent of people who can make these things, have they said they want this to go darker? Have they said they want these robots to look lethal or cute or like a toy or like a transformer?
They
And
remind me of the emoji robots that Peter Capaldi
Yeah.
encounters, and I can't think what that story's called off the top of my head.
Smile.
yeah.
Smile. Ah, that's it.
I was wondering more of the
They
dinosaurs on
were
a spaceship.
creepier in
robots.
Smile too, because you had to always be happy or they would turn you into compost.
Yeah.
No, I was more reminded of the dinosaurs on a spaceship robots. They were like
Yeah, and
those. But I just wondered if they run out of money because they couldn't afford heads.
Yeah,
They just
the
thought
husbands
they
of
were
River
heads.
Son. I always say that
Yeah.
one. Now, Paul,
Yeah.
you gave this one 7 out of 10 as well. So we agree on this one. And your reasons for this one?
My reasons stem for what I thought was very good acting, very good script writing, and very good sequencing. I felt that there was a wonderful flow to the story. I felt that the sequence of events developed at a good pace, an explanatory pace, and hence there was lots of exposition. I also, there was a few points that I particularly liked. The first point was, I don't know whether it was a consequence of direction, writing, or both. I suspect it's the sort of thing that Davies used to write into scripts, and it was when the earthquake effect heralded the arrival of the robots. One of the first things to be dislodged from the wall, or the first thing to be dislodged from the wall, was the certificate. I like touches like that because it adds intricacy and it makes things cohesive. It means that things mentioned before are tacitly mentioned again. Also, the scene when she was walking through the garden, when she was being jostled by the robots, in tandem to speaking to Mrs. Flood. I like the strange nature of her voice. I like the fact that she was essentially having a fairly mundane conversation, or in a mundane kind of vein, in the context of having been kidnapped by robots. I thought it was pitched perfectly. I did.
That's interesting, Paul, because a lot of people were on the show yesterday on our Who Won last night. And a lot of people, I didn't ask them, were mentioning that opening sequence where she's in the garden. And they thought that bit was a bit challenging. I have to say there's a lot going on for an actor there, because she's having to say, somebody's cat's gone missing, tell my mum and dad I'm being kidnapped and they think I'm a queen. I mean, it's very weird dialogue to try and
It was
be grounded. And a lot of people thought that was the flattest bit of her performance, that bit.
My favourite part. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not just offering it to be needlessly countering. I genuinely love that sequence. I felt it was very, very well portrayed. The other bit I liked in particular was the numbered words and the significance. I felt that was very brave. I already mentioned that the pacing was good, and I think it was quite brave to insinuate a nuance like that, because it took time. We had to sort of take time to realize what was going on. We had to count on our fingers, and I felt it was brave to do that. I think it worked, and I think it was creditable. And it obviously featured later on in the, if not the resolution, then certainly it made the character's behavior, the AI behavior, Alan, it made it a little more explicable. I thought it was very well done. Very well done.
I'm in two minds about the dialogue thing. It's one of those, the first time you watch it, you go, oh yeah, interesting idea. It's a bit like in Utopia when, you know, the insect woman always finished her sentences with a certain word, you know, all that kind of thing. But on kind of review and watch it again and again over the years, like we do with some of the classics, I keep thinking, yeah, but is that just a clever little kind of neat trick for you dramatically within your 45 minutes to just have something that we didn't notice? Because why would we? That kind of thing. Because I don't mind that first bit, but you know, at the end when he said, didn't you realize that the owl generator was showing he's in pain too? And I thought, well, how are we going to notice all this in his fast story? No.
Well, the problem with that, I must admit, the problem I had with that harks back to what we were all talking about before, when he was so dismissive and callous and even mocking of the fact that Al no longer existed, that Alan no longer existed. So I agree, that was jarring, and it was, excuse me, please. It was either just inefficient writing or lazy writing, or once again, he was so desperate to get a particular point across that he just forgot about getting from A to B in a sensible fashion.
Yeah.
But I still like that scene in the garden and that dialogue with the every ninth word. I was very impressed with that. Very impressed with what it was.
So there we've got the scores for the second one. I know some people are saying, oh, we're being generous. Remember, it's the full package. You know, I suppose it's one. I mean, I could try and reword it because the second one. I was just going to say first, though, the use of production resources. I give the panelists a choice of what they want to bring to the party. I don't want to, because it's too big an area. But go on, John.
It's about use of production resources. At one point when I was watching this, the scene at the beginning set in the house, Belinda's shared student accommodation. To me, it looks as though reusing Donna Noble's house set from Star Beast.
Yeah.
See, which comes from the door and the staircase and into the kitchen and the back door where the cat gets shot. I thought, have I not seen this somewhere before? And I thought, for all this money, are you having to reuse a set? I might be wrong. But
I said last night that Beep the Meeps rocket had a similar design to the rocket we saw last night, which was, and the reason why I also didn't give it 10 out of 10 was this retro look of rockets and stuff. I don't know. It's not me. That's all I can say is I'd like something really out there. Now, Garbage
is a physical set.
Garbage, who's moderating for us, has just said that, you know, those in the thread feel that we are voting 7 and 10 for the show itself. Clarify it's for we're not. I mean, no.
I judged costume.
Yep, I judged it on the design of the robots, and I you know, the design of the rocket and certain features like that. As I heard Michelle say, that effect of that time thing.
That was impressive. I mean, that's probably the best use of Disney money.
Yeah, and so what we're not rewarding the producers. We're not rewarding the executive production team. We're not saying, oh, well done, BBC. What we're saying is you've got a budget for each story. Have they used that budget well? As I said earlier, in Boom, they wasted a lot of money on an LED screen when they could have just gone to a quarry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was a good use of money. So that's what we judge it on. That's what we try to anyway. I hope that's clarified that. It's not about going, hey, let's big it up for the BBC. No, not at all. So let's just see what the scores are for this one in its entirety. And so there you go. 64%, no surprise to people. You're going to find it's going to wobble about tonight. This one, 32 marks out of 50, 64%. So you know that we've been jumping around there. So this one might get tasty though. Did it engage? Did the resolution land? And a lot of reviews, you look out there on the media, a lot of reviews were saying it did not land. It was on the nose, very unsatisfactory. That's what they're saying. Obviously, Michelle, if I started with you on this one, you give it 6 out of 10 for the resolution and for the engagement.
And even like today, I would probably drop it down to a 5. I mean, when you start really thinking about it, again, it's at the time where I'm trying to. Well, I sent you that when I was watching it for the second time. I was trying to remember how I felt the first time around. And again, it's like it just felt like such a mediocre meh episode. It's like, and how do you rate meh? And so I just go le meh.
So why 6 and not lower then? I know you said you might have gone to 5, but you know, are you kind of saying if it's 5 out of 10 that this is a kind of a middle of the road kind of feel of a Doctor Who plot?
To me, it was because again, it's going up to the point where it was good, and then all of a sudden it just goes downhill. Same thing with Dawn Bubble. There's a part where it was decent, and then it just goes down meh. And again, I can't understand what the resolution meant.
Does the thread, and obviously I'm asking Michelle as well here, feel it? Look, I can see clever editing. I can see clever ways of how they do make any drama nowadays, but I don't quite like this kind of chopping about and just being. It's kind of been clever to say we've been clever with the editing and with what we've omitted to tell you and all the rest of it. If I'm judging on whether it engages me or I feel as though it resolves, yeah, you could say there's a bit of logic to how you have edited your resources, but it doesn't satisfy me because you never included me.
Because it didn't give me the endorphin high of a good episode, and didn't give me spitting nails of a bad episode, like I felt with the Christmas episode. So it's like in that middle. It's like kind of felt like you would feel about an episode that's like middle of the season. It's like, it's okay, it's there. We just have to fill out the episode count to get to the finale.
So you've got Jess here. I mean, this is what's fascinating as Rachel comes in. Poor props, badly rushed, poorly executed, 2 out of 10, and that's being generous. I suppose that's for the whole thing, Jess, is what you're saying. You'll see what we say for the whole thing soon, and you know, it does level off a bit. Go on, Rachel.
Yeah. Okay, was I engaged? No, because after he cried, I checked to see how long was left.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh my goodness, we're like 22 minutes in. Oh no. I would say like the resolution, it was mid at best. It was what I said in my review. I found the story was quite convoluted in many respects. And the resolution wasn't what I would call to be a relief. I didn't like the fact that it's always the companion recently that has to save the day. It was too companion centric. Yeah, the Doctor does save her, but it's literally blink and you will miss it. I would have liked to have seen how we got to that point to save her, if they were going to make it that they were touching, or maybe he should have been the one that was doing the touching, the crossing over of the timeline with the
he's a Time Lord.
He is a Time Lord, yeah. Was it good story writing? Yeah, the ideas are there, but there was too many timeline problems to fill in, and there was also too many trigger words with this. So for that reason, I gave it a 4.
Yeah, you see, one of the things as I come to you, John, one of the things I said in the stream last night is bottom line, and this is my issue. 45-minute episodes, as Rachel says, might have some good ideas in them, but because they're not allowed to pan out, what we've got here is a writer, a showrunner who decides the story is the sacrificial lamb for the narrative arc. All we're doing is feeding little crumbs for the rest of the series.
And sorry,
how many times does a 45-minute story finish early just to do a little bit at the end? So, John, coming to you, I
think Rachel wants to come back on something first.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say this story had so much potential. You could have made an entire story arc out of this. That's all I was going to say.
But this is my problem. I'd love to see a Doctor Who story actually do a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. Now, it had a structure like that there, but all these extra bits, you can only be truly satisfied and resolved if all the other clues are kind of work out. I'm sick of the narrative arc. I'm sick of you know, I cannot be totally satisfied as a viewer because I will have to tune in again and again and again. Now, it works to a degree for Key to Time. It works to a degree for Trial of a Time Lord. But no, I'm sick of it. And so I think too many times a possible potential good story is sacrificed for the arc. John, you really weren't happy with this, were you? Will you give it 1?
Yeah, 1. Yeah, 1. I went full meh, Michelle. It just left me cold. I dare say, you know, having too much chocolate, you get a nice little thrill at the time, and then afterwards you feel sick. I didn't even get the thrill of the sugar rush at the time because there was too many trigger warnings and too many things to upset me along the way, and I was waiting for the next thing that may or may not upset me purely because of my experience of last year. But ultimately, 2 things about the resolution, if we're talking about that. Secondly, it finished far too soon to allow, as you say, the narrative arc to continue. That whole notion about Belinda being an unwilling passenger and that whole referring back to her previous appearance in the previous season. People aren't interested in that. They just don't care about that. So why we're spending 2 or 3 minutes, which could have been lent over to the story, I don't understand. But even going back to the story, it was a bit hit and miss. Basically, somebody touches somebody with something else, and then the whole thing's over. But really, what we wrangled with at the end takes us way back to what we started with. Is the fact that the Doctor is part and part to the abortion of a human being right at the end. It's a sperm and an egg. The little sweepy uppy machine comes along, and we all have a laugh at the loss of a life. Now, this is a family show, and I just don't know what sort of thought went into this, but let's assume that a great deal of thought went into it, and he went ahead and did it anyway, and the team of people sitting around him approved of him doing this anyway. Then it
Are laughing their heads off.
It proves to me ultimately that this is no longer a program for children, because that's not the sort of thing that should appear anywhere in a children's program. If the character had to die, and if the Doctor had to be responsible for this character's death, then the Doctor should have been mourning the loss of a life, the loss of the potential of that life because of the path this character took. And that didn't happen. What we got was a sitcom type ending where he's reduced to a sperm and an egg, and let's sweep him away and let's have a laugh and move on now in the last 7 minutes or so for the narrative arc to continue. Unforgivable. 1.
Especially when the Doctor in the classic era, couldn't even contemplate. It was having difficulty contemplating, do I have the right to do genocide on the Daleks?
Yeah.
For all the people that they've done, but I can still save them. Look at all the good things the Daleks have brought to the world. They brought people together who may have been enemies.
Precisely. This boy,
every life has value.
This boy may well have been guilty of toxic masculinity. He may well have been guilty of coercive control. He may well have been guilty of just being inappropriate to Belinda. But nonetheless, he was a human being. His life was lived, and the Doctor should have mourned the fact that this was a life lost and a life not well lived. And instead, what we got was a sitcom ending and a laugh at the end. Totally unforgivable.
And what was and remember, in this 45-minute episode, RTD led us to a different path. So whether this resolved or engaged me, I was supposed to be engaged by Sasha 55's death and the Doctor's response to it, but she was hardly on the TV for me to have actually developed any opinion on her. And so I was being told that the Doctor's upset about that. And then, just as John says, but he is so dismissive of another human being dying, but the Sasha 55 was key and all the rest of it. And to me, there's a disjoint there, a disconnection.
The Doctor who I grew up with may well have not liked the person that this Alan was, but he would have remembered that he was a son to someone. He was a brother to someone. That's the Doctor that I grew up with, and he would have mourned and regretted either a life lost or a life not properly lived. Not what we got.
Now, Paul, you know me, I'm going to be provocative and lead into this, but you give it 8. Fair enough, it's allowed. This is why we have a diverse panel. But what I wanted to say is, the way this was set up with Sasha 55 and the death of the other person was problematic. And you've got, Genesis being mentioned. You missed the whole idea of what the Doctor was. Go on then. 8 out of 10, engaged and happy with the resolution.
Well, yeah, in terms of the resolution regarding Belinda, the Doctor, and the paradoxes that were established, yes, I definitely was. I didn't like, as I've said already, I didn't like the dismissive, callous, mocking way that Alan's non-existence was treated. I also agree with you. I liked the idea of the Doctor's relationship largely being built on an unseen basis, in that he arrived 6 months earlier with Sasha. I quite like the expedience of Davies doing that, because it freed up more of the 45 minutes. I felt that it was communicated well that there was regret on his part, and I apologise for that. My dog's just playing with one of its toys.
It's the Hoopex.
Bring him on.
And so I did like that experience. I felt it was sensible, and I felt it was effective. It enabled me, at least, to kind of auto-complete what the emotions might be. I felt that the on-screen time between them was just about enough to consolidate the idea that they built up a friendship and a rapport and a dependency in those 6 months off-screen. But yes, I do agree with the disjoint, Brendan. I do agree with that. I don't include that in my engagement. I felt that was crass, but by that point, my enjoyment, engagement, and satisfaction with the resolution had already sort of taken place. So that's the basis upon which I give it an 8. Important foreshadowing events were laid down consistently, and they were also developed upon, and they were also delivered upon. As I've said before, I felt the sequencing was very good in this. I felt there were no sort of cheat resolutions. I felt conclusions were arrived at quite naturally. There were examples in last season where he didn't deliver on anything that was promised. He did set things up, but he didn't deliver. Also, going back to what Rachel said about the Moffatism nature of his approach, I agree with that. My feeling is that it was a hybridization of the better elements of Moffat and Davies. And I think that was in large part a reason for my engagement. I felt it was derivative, like John has said, but if you derive well, you can still tell a meaningful story. I mean, Doctor Who's been doing that for a long time. I don't pretend that this aspires to some of the great derivations, such as the Hinchcliffe era, but I still felt it was a successful attempt, and I felt there was much to admire here. I was impressed with the resolution. I was impressed with the reveal of the AI. I didn't see it coming. I really
no.
I knew it was coming back, but I didn't see it as that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, and look, it's a very balanced point to look at, isn't it? Because my critique of, he's using toxic masculinity as a thing, and he's got AI, he's having a dig at AI, blah blah blah. But Robert Holmes with the Sunmakers would, a nice gentle poke for 4 episodes on the tax system. It's just whether one delivers the message to be received if you want it, rather than it's there. So, for example, the resolution at the end, there was a throwaway line about reparations. And if you just look at 45 minutes of that script, you've got reparations, toxic masculinity, planet of the incels. Just carry on with a few more examples, and you think, you're talking at the audience. Now, whenever I get talked at or taught how to think, my resolution satisfaction disappears. And I thought that ending, and I've seen endings where, Curse of Peladon, everything's sorted out in the throne room. I understand Doctor Who does that at the end. Part 4s are never my favourite. But while everybody kisses and makes up in any Doctor Who story, I just found there were still throwaway lines there. Reparations. What point are you trying to make, are you, to the British taxpayer, by any chance, RTD? And that takes me, it's like breaking the fourth wall, Paul. Suddenly, I'm taken out of the drama thinking, all right, you're having a dig at me.
it wasn't as intrusive for me. I don't like this era, and I don't like the fact that Russell T Davies has spearheaded it. I don't like any of that. I'm judging it really on the strange basis of watching it, not expecting to like it, not liking the messaging. I knew I wouldn't like that, but actually liked the way it was done. Once you allow for the fact that he wants to apply this kind of messaging, my question then becomes, and your criteria actually leans into this, because it enables us to look at how the story was formulated, regardless of how distasteful the subject matter might be. And I judged it on that basis. And on that basis, I found myself almost inadvertently becoming engaged with this story. I liked what it portended from the beginning. I liked the way it was sequenced, as I said. I felt there was a good pace. I felt there was a lot of Doctor Who elements in this, in spite of it being positioned adversely against us by the showrunner. So I felt rewarded by the resolution, and I felt engaged throughout. But like I say, that doesn't mean I'm an apologist for Russell T
No,
Davies.
no, we're not saying that. We're just asking for a bit of it.
Sorry, you can like it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So absurd is this current era that you have to impose caveats and conditionals and just general context when you.
Oh, well, I don't know why you do the courtesy. RTD never does caveats. He's very blunt and very direct and doesn't do caveats at all. He likes to have no caveats in 45 minutes.
I will say that this story, I think, has done something that I can't recall if we've ever seen in New Who, and that is done and it's done some like a cliffhanger at the end.
Yes.
Where it had all that stuff floating into space. I don't recall ever seeing that since New Who has been rebooted.
Right. You might be right.
For a first story.
Can I just use your point and ask the panel here and ask the thread, because there's a couple of things. It's a good point to make, because the resolution was the plot resolution, and then you get the final scene. And the final scene was a little bit Planet of the Apes, where you see the Statue of Liberty in the sand type thing. However, and it did grab me, a bit like the girl in the fireplace, when suddenly they had that shot at the end and you saw the name of the ship and you went, that sort of thing. So it did do that, but that's nothing to do with the plot, really. However, because in some trailers we'd seen the Statue of Liberty in space, we'd seen the Eiffel Tower, we'd seen the taxi, I wonder if we lost a bit of the effect because of that. But I'm going to ask the panel this, and I'll just finish my sentence. There were so many trailers that I actually wondered whether could my engagement with this episode be high, because I'd seen so much. Do you know what I mean? And so that conflates with the end as well. Michelle, what do you think? Because we saw so much.
Oh, I think I'm just kind of tired of the overarching every season has to have a story. I just want a madman in his box going off fighting monsters, having adventures. I'm getting so tired of every companion is the most important in the universe. Every monster is the worst. Every threat the Doctor faces is the worst ever. And I really love the small scale risk. Give me a case of Enterzani where it's a small scale risk.
Yeah.
It really is, of course, that the storyline of him having to get her back home would be enough to do what, and I agree with Michelle, I would much prefer things to be of the format that Michelle describes. Him having to get her home could actually lend itself to that. There doesn't have to be some cosmic god or some such behind it all. He could just be struggling to get her home, and en route they encounter strange new worlds, etc. So I agree with that. I would much prefer things to be on a self-contained basis as opposed to... Do
you think, John, my point being, there were so many trailers, and then Rachel mentions the Eiffel Tower bit at the end and the Statue of Liberty. Do you think we saw too much, that there was no possibility to be fully engaged in this?
Well, whether we saw it is irrelevant. It's whether the viewers saw these trailers or not, and obviously they didn't, because they didn't tune in. So that doesn't bother me. I don't care about that. What it made me worry about is the fate, as somebody said in the chat, of the Blackpool Tower. What's going to happen to Blackpool during the course of the season, because it goes spinning around at the end. But more importantly, what Paul said, and I think Michelle also mentioned this about these high stakes that New Who has. Smaller scale stories. It's a mistake that soap operas have fallen into now, that everything has to be bigger than the last time now. The affair has to be more strenuous. The explosion has to be bigger. The stakes have to be higher. All this goes on and on, and Doctor Who now buys into this. And the reason why it doesn't work in Doctor Who, unlike perhaps in a soap opera, is that they press the big reset button at the end of every time. So the stakes, while apparently being high, will aren't high at all, because everything will go back to normal at the end. So I don't know why they bother doing this. If they went for more smaller scale stuff about the fate of Belinda and will this character make it out alive by the end of the season, that might be a much better way to hang the season on, and might involve viewers a whole lot more than the effect of a huge scale cataclysm, which we all know is going to be fixed ultimately.
Rachel, do you think we saw too much?
I didn't really see many of the trailers. I saw like one, maybe two, so I don't know. I can't really answer that. I know that a lot of what we saw at the beginning of this one, though, was in the first or the second one. I can't remember now, but we did see a lot. I think so.
I'm trying to think, what was grabbing me about this. I was in, when the TARDIS refused to go back to the 24th of May, 2025, I suppose you could say a bit of TARDIS action, like with Resurrection of the Daleks, when he was going down the time corridor and you've got that cliffhanger to the next story, Or was it the end of Frontiers? That was it, the end of Frontiers.
Frontiers, yeah.
And then you got that jump, I get that. So, it kind of gives me a tidbit for next week. But I know I'm too well groomed in this, that basically over the series, these stories are insubstantial to the narrative arc that is the one big delivery thing. And
it's going to be Belinda, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Belinda Rani, do you think? Because she's called Queen?
Yeah, I don't know, but
she nails the TARDIS before it even says what the TARDIS is.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Farsight keeps saying Susan, and Susan's got one of those fob watches, that the Master had, that Jacoby Master had. I hope not. Leave her alone.
If they're bringing Susan back, as Caroline Ford is still very much alive and well and with us, there shouldn't be a recast. By all means, have her back and then recast later. But at the moment, if Susan is returning, it has to be Caroline Ford. Otherwise, I don't know why they should bother. But yeah, these small stake things are really better. I mean, I care more about Nyssa fainting at the end of Fourth Doomsday than I do about any of this stuff just now, because I'm invested in her. I care about her, and that's what they need to do more of in this current Doctor Who than the spectacle that they end up doing.
I will say that we haven't seen it really in New Who, where the companion doesn't want to be in the TARDIS, right? Okay. So this is going to be, other than the special where you had Donna Noble for her first appearance. So this is going to be something new for the younger viewers. Okay. Now this to us is not new. We've had Barbara and Ian and Tegan. They did not want to be in the TARDIS, and they wanted to go home. Barbara and Ian wanted to go home to London, and Tegan wanted to go and do her job at Heathrow, but they just went the long way around it. I think perhaps that, I don't really want to say this, but I think maybe rather than making her the impossible girl or the mysterious girl, it should just be that, he's trying to get her home. He has to go about it the long way, but there's something on that date that's preventing him. That's not necessarily connected to her, but it's connected to him, and that's why he can't get to that date.
The other thing I was intrigued by, feeling forced to be interested in, he was very excited at Belinda being part of his life for a long time. Now, I felt that the writer was telling me something that I should be bothered about, because he was so excited, so happy that I've known you, Belinda, forever. And when you could do all the clips, there's a moment when she's a baby and he's holding her. So is she the granddaughter? Is she Susan? Blah, 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 blah. Why is Mrs. Flood like the next door neighbour to Ruby and says goodbye to her? And then in this episode, she's the next door neighbour to Belinda and says goodbye to her. There's some kind of, she's the gatekeeper to something. She's setting all this up, isn't she?
We'll find out, no doubt. And we'll all be complaining about it because it'll be rubbish. There's a voice of optimism for you.
Well, he's the fan. I mean, this was the result for the engagement and for the resolution, and you can see we got the low score there. So overall, 54% for overall was what we scored it out of the potential that it could be. Now, if everybody has failed to be adding up, I showed you the scores for Legend of Ruby Sunday, Empire of Death, and all of those. We've given it an accumulated total of 82, which puts it 3 above Legend of Ruby Sunday. So, wow. I mean, it's still poor. So when people are thinking we're being generous here and all the rest of it, in the scheme of things, that's 82 out of 150. Hello. Think of Deadly Assassin. Think of Talons of Wen Cheyenne. Think of the stories where we would be given 10 out of 10, 3 times over. This is still tanking. 82 out of 150 is disgraceful.
I tell you what you should do, Brendan, is for your classic reviews is apply the same sort of like method for perhaps one of them, see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, well, John was checking on me the other day. He said, and I said, well, I try to be nice with the classic review, so I don't kind of sound like I'm some sort of assessor. But,
do it to the Twin Dilemma. See what it comes out as.
What we tend to do with the classic reviews is
I'd rather watch the Twin Dilemma than this.
We do tend to say good or satisfactory. That's how we normally do it, but I never pin them down to a number. So everybody, we've really gone for it tonight on the looks next week. Oh my God! So the panel, they've done their homework, they've done their research, and they've given me an awful lot of time. So thank you everybody tonight for doing that. Can I just remind you that in 5 minutes time or so, at 8:30, we will be doing a big debate on the red lines in Doctor Who. When would you walk away? Have you passed that point? What are the red lines? Is it the Doctor's character changing? Is it them changing something to do with the music, as one panelist once said? That's what we're looking at 8:30. You've got time to go and get a drink. You've got time to go to the loo. And then 8:30, our debate starts. Michelle, thank you for all your contributions tonight. It's been a mammoth one, and it's been really worthwhile and enjoyable. Rachel, I know that you're streaming here, there, and everywhere. So what's going on your channel?
Well, my Mind Warp, Trial of the Time Lord, is up. That went out at 4 o'clock today. And at some point, I don't know when exactly, I've just got to finish the edit off. I'm going to be uploading the ratings that video that I did, that I was recording just before this live stream. So that will be up tonight. And then I'm talking about Davros tomorrow.
It's a busy time, isn't it? I feel busy because I know I do need to actually not sit in this room for a bit longer. But Paul, thank you for your debut. You'll be on at 8:30 as well. So yeah, you're working your hard.
Can I just thank you all in turn for making my debut, being so instrumental in making my debut so enjoyable. Consummate pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's good. Yeah. No, you look. We had a nice.
Next time, bring the dog. Let's see your dog next time. That's what you got to do.
I think we're doing that already. It's
we had a nice we had a nice debate. That's the whole point. I hate it when everyone agrees because you almost kind of could do all the items in 5 minutes. So we had a good. You know, that's what I said. You know, sometimes we are passionate Doctor Who fans, still friends, but we won't agree with a word we're saying to each other. It's great.
It was nice to have an opposing opinion.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of accord as well. I think there was a lot of accord in certain areas as well,
Yeah, it was also nice to have somebody argue with Brendan other than me.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. Yeah, I know. You've been training him. And of course, John.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan. I just want to say, just in terms of what Rachel just said, and in our stream doing mind warp. Now, there is how you do a real surprise, shock ending cliffhanger towards Doctor Who. At the end of that, so I don't want to say it out loud because people haven't seen it, but that's how you shock an audience out of the blue. Now, later on,
Yeah.
that's not the point. At the end of that episode, my goodness.
Cool. Colin's
Firing
face
on all
as well.
cylinders. Absolutely, they're firing on all cylinders at the end of that episode. Well done.
Well, thank you all.
I should look that one out, Michelle.
Thank you all very much for your time, and of course,
thank you, Brendan. I don't know
you.
what for, but thank you, Brendan.
Yeah, 8:30 we're on again, and we're on at Tuesday 8 p.m. And of course, like Rachel, I might be just uploading various things, but thank you very much. Give us a like and subscribe.
Thanks to the stream as well. Thanks to the chat. Thanks, guys.
Repost to one person. That would always help. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye.